Betrayed by House Declan, Aster faced a cruel and inevitable death. But a magic tome granted him a second chance to return to the past. Now, with knowledge of the future, he will forge a new destiny. Unimaginable powers will be awakened for his revenge against betrayal. The mage's regression. His journey to freedom and vengeance begins now. On that day, under a vast and clear sky, a shadowy dragon emerged, foreshadowing the events to come. The colossal creature roars furiously, its rage echoing through the skies as it prepares for the imminent battle. Covered in blood, Aster faces the confrontation with a cold, determined gaze, accepting his fate in that moment. Covered in blood, Aster gazes at the sky, introduced as a member of the great magical house Declan that betrayed him. He clenches his fist tightly, anger and determination growing within him before his impending death. Black feathers fall from the sky as crows gather, a grim omen marking the tragic end of his first life. Aster immobilizes the troubleshooter's manager in midair with his magic, initiating a direct confrontation to get answers about his hidden powers. Holding a book, Aster declares that he will now be the one asking the questions, taking full control of the situation with a confident stance. He analyzes the object and questions if it's a magic tome, realizing it might be the source of his enemy's unexpected power. Suffocating under Aster's magic, the manager barely manages to confirm that the book is, indeed, a magic tome. The troubleshooter's manager demands to know how to use the tome, but Aster, holding the book, confesses he doesn't know how the item works. Aster reflects on the irony of being pursued for a magic tome he doesn't even know how to use. Instead of surrendering, Aster prepares a spell and questions by what authority the troubleshooter's manager dares to give him orders. Aster prepares a spell as the troubleshooter's manager asks for his last words, mocking him for finally accepting his identity. With a magic circle in hand, Aster faces his opponent, sensing the immense danger emanating from him and preparing for the worst. The man reveals his identity with a smile. He is the head of the magical house Declan, the powerful figure of the Eastern continent. The head of house. Declan approaches, saying he wants Aster's tome. The mercenary prepares himself, reflecting on his decade of work. With the gleaming tome in hand, Aster confronts the chief, accusing him of brazenly trying to steal his reward. In a tense standoff, Aster and the head of House Declan face each other, exhausted but prepared for the final confrontation amidst the desolation. Chief Declan recognizes Aster's remarkable talent, regretting not having noticed his impressive skill during previous battles. Aster glares at his opponent with a cold gaze, as House Head Declan continues to comment on his unexpectedly high skill level. In response to the offer, Aster arrogantly demands the leader's seat, which amuses House Head Declan. The House Head responds to his audacity by unleashing a powerful electric spell, a magic circle glowing intensely on his fist. Aster screams in agony as the attack hits him directly, violently electrocuted by his employer's betrayal. Aster provokes House Head Declan, sarcastically asking how many people have died to his magic as he prepares a powerful attack. Enveloped in blue lightning, Aster charges with a confident smile, ready to unleash the magic strike he prepared against his enemy. Aster shouts that power must be measured, and House Head Declan responds, accepting the challenge to put him in his place. Aster's magic violently collides with House Head Declan's, unleashing a wave of destructive power that devastates the surrounding area. House Head. Declan remains calm amidst the chaos, preparing his next spell with unwavering confidence and a look of disdain. Aster charges desperately, but realizes with dread that there isn't a single opening in his adversary's flawless defense. Aster defends against a surprise attack, blocking the red energy with a magic shield as he assesses his opponent's overwhelming strength. House Head. Declan provokes him, saying there are things one knows without measuring, hinting at Aster's inevitable defeat. Aster is shocked as he feels the immense energy accumulating, realizing he gravely underestimated his adversary's true strength. The troubleshooter's manager defends against an attack and questions his opponent, saying he merely beat him and asks if he's ready to talk. Wounded, Aster begins to conjure a light spell, preparing for a desperate counterattack against his adversary. Aster unleashes a powerful electric attack, shouting that he's fed up with being mistreated and won't eat dog food anymore. Aster channels his mana and unleashes a devastating lightning attack against House Head Declan, shattering the ground with the force of the impact. With a furious glare, he shouts that he refuses to be a dog again, for a grand house and a shining leash are merely a cage. In a flashback, a mysterious man prepares a red spell and tells Aster, "Let me show you," unleashing devastating energy. The original Aster is caught in the middle of the magic circle, helpless as the red energy completely envelops him with overwhelming power. Back in the present, Aster's face is covered in blood, but his gaze remains cold and determined, remembering the betrayal. With a bloodied face, Aster is shocked to hear the proposal for him to become the head of the Bongshin family. With a confident smile, Aster holds the magic tome as powerful energy emanates from his hand and the book. Househead. Declan reveals his true desire with a smile. He wants both Aster and the magic tome. Househead. Declan smiles, reaching for Aster's tome as he declares that his alleged crimes are finally settled. The tome erupts in purple flames, but the head of House Declan continues, stating that now only the glory of being by his side remains. With eyes glowing red, the head of House Declan orders Aster to shut up, denying him the chance of an easy death. Wounded, Aster holds a magical artifact, asserting he was never in it for the money, but that the item is directly linked to him. He reveals the artifact is forbidden magic, used to devour his comrades in an incident Declan covered up to hide the truth. With a cold, determined gaze, Aster focuses on his revenge, resolved to ensure the culprits receive what they deserve for the betrayal. The head of house. Declan turns and, with a snap of his fingers, declares, "Those will be Aster's last words." Enveloped in his aura, the head curses Aster, ordering him to burn in the flames and regret his choice forever. Amidst the flames, Aster scoffs at the idea of regret, preferring his fate to returning to being Declan's dog. As his body dissolves into pure energy, Aster lets out a maniacal laugh, feeling a strange exhilaration in his final moments. Without regrets, Aster vows that if he is reborn, this time he will seek freedom and revenge, as the wind begins to converge around him. Back in his young body, Aster is perplexed to see the head of House Declan in the distance and realize everything around him has stopped. A glowing magical tome appears before him. Aster immediately wonders if this mysterious item is the cause of everything that happened. Aster reaches for the mysterious tome as a powerful blue aura erupts, enveloping his body in a whirlwind of magic. A magic circle glows intensely on his chest, and the light consumes his consciousness as the immense power devours him. Confused, Aster wonders what happened as he sees a coin fall into a pouch suddenly in his hands. Aster finds himself before a bowl with few coins, a sight that leaves him utterly confused about his current situation. Sweating coldly, he widens his eyes as he remembers everything, exclaiming internally, "That's right, now I remember." Aster wakes in a lush green field, enveloped by a magical aura, and begins to understand that something extraordinary has happened to his body. Looking at his reflection, Aster realizes he is younger, confirming he somehow traveled back in time to his youth. Sitting in the field, Aster reflects on what happened, concluding that the mysterious magical tome was responsible for his regression in time. Sitting by the water's edge, Aster realizes everything is too vivid to be a dream, confirming he is alive by the smell of sewage. He clenches his fist with determination, questioning what it truly means to succeed now that he has been given a second chance at life. Looking at the water, Aster reflects on his past life, understanding that the death he experienced was like a long dream. Watching the sunset, the protagonist reflects that it was also his comrade's dream, while Aster accompanies him in silence. Aster looks at the horizon and laments his past, saying they were born as vagrants with nothing, not even education or decent food. Aster turns to the protagonist, questioning what dragged their lives into the gutter, though he claims to be fine with it. Watching the sunset, the original Aster laments that, due to lack of education, they ended up enslaved by nobles and their lives in the gutter. Despite his friend's bitterness, Aster displays an enigmatic smile, appearing strangely resigned to their miserable fate. Sitting on the grass, Aster reveals his desire to build a library, a place where everyone can access knowledge, regardless of their origin. He envisions a sanctuary for all readers, without distinction of money, status, or gender, where knowledge would be free and accessible to anyone. With a maniacal gaze, Aster decides he will place Declan's secret manual at the entrance, so even the marginalized can access its power. In a flashback, a man shows a boy a book, enthusiastically explaining that the cover will bear the crest of House Declan. Observing the book closely, the boy thinks that just imagining the power it represents makes his mouth water. Suddenly, Aster is knocked down by a violent kick from an assailant who shouts, "You scumbag! I was looking for you!" Damien angrily kicks Aster, shouting that he was saving his spot. He threatens him, asking if he wants to die. As he gets up, Aster notices his fist glowing mysteriously, not understanding why this is happening to his body. Aster retaliates with a kick, knocking Damien down. Shocked, Damien screams, unable to believe a brat dared to hit him. Seeing his opponent fall into the water, Aster realizes this is his chance and prepares to act. As Aster flees, his adversary furiously shouts, questioning where he thinks he's running. Aster looks back with an intense gaze, telling himself he will remember that face and that this is a tactical retreat. After the confrontation, Aster sits on the ground to recover while Damien watches him in silence, assessing the situation between them. Damien asks why he's still there, and Aster, annoyed, firmly declares his intention, "I'm coming with you." A green-haired boy is surprised when a glowing magical healing circle envelops his injured hand. With a confident smile, Damien reveals the name of his ability, casually calling it Magic Touch. Shocked, the boy realizes the magic's power is immense, thinking that this is no simple magic touch. Aster recognizes the Light of Healing, the secret technique of the Blandor family, which he knows was ruined by Declan. Despite the boy's smile, Aster feels a dirty and dangerous presence emanating from him, putting him on alert. Upon seeing the magic, Aster finally identifies him as Damien Blandor, questioning why he would be in the gray zone. In the darkness, Damien's heterochromatic eyes glow with a sinister light, one green and one red, revealing his dangerous nature. His terrifying aura dissipates as he crouches, exclaiming with childlike innocence upon seeing the ground, "Wow, ants!" Aster stares at his opponent with disdain, scoffing at his current task and thinking, "One ant? 2 ants? Seriously?" He recalls his time as a mercenary before his regression, on a mission for the Blandor family at the behest of House Declan. As he and his companions ran, one of them complained about why they had to solve the Blandor family's problems. The mission turns more serious when it's revealed there's a monster on the property and dozens have already died. Amidst the destruction, Aster watches the scene in horror, for it was then that he finally saw him. He realizes the cause of the chaos wasn't an ogre, but a group of hooded figures amidst the fire. Fighting with an insane smile, Aster recognizes the pure madness of Damien, the future Mad Butcher. Aster recognizes Damien von Blander, the future and feared Mad Butcher, a man who couldn't be killed. Facing young Damien, Aster calculates how many years have passed since his regression, thinking, 1 before, 2 before. Damien smiles at Aster, saying his mother taught him one must eat well to stay healthy. Aster turns and asks Damien if he got the money, indifferent to the harsh words the boy said earlier. In response, a bowl overflowing with glittering gold coins is presented, confirming the job's success. Aster puts a friendly arm around Damien, who holds the payment and murmurs, confused by the sudden closeness. Aster reacts with a start, shocked by the vehemence with which Damien denies his own family's existence. With a serious gaze, Damien kneels on the bed and insists with conviction, "I don't have a father either." Aster looks at the boy with concern and questions him about his mother's absence, trying to understand his situation. Asked how long he's been alone, Damien reveals it's been 10 days since he ran away from home. With a finger to his lips, Damien hints that he also knows a lot, leaving Aster surprised by his mysterious demeanor. Damien smiles cheerfully, making a peace sign and celebrating that he managed to sleep 10 times, something he couldn't do before. In contrast, Aster collapses onto his bed, screaming from pure physical and mental exhaustion due to his relentless training. Burying his face in the pillow, Aster fights against the pain and fatigue, determined to endure everything to achieve his goal. Lying restless, Damien turns in bed, thinking how uncomfortable the place is, making it impossible for him to rest peacefully. Aster sits up abruptly in bed, eyes wide, warning that if Damien continues, it will become a big problem for both of them. Suddenly, Damien appears sitting on Aster's chest, asking if he was practicing breathing and stating he'd wait to do the same. With a determined gaze, Aster prepares to use the technique he memorized, ready to face the consequences and grow stronger. He screams in pain as the technique consumes him, feeling as if lava flows through his body and questioning what this is. Shocked, Aster watches the energy around him change color, transforming into a blue aura in his hands. Aster gasps on the ground, feeling a surge of power course through his body, leaving him utterly stunned and overwhelmed. Sitting up confused after the energy surge, protagonist Aster wonders exactly how much time has passed. He stares at his own hands in shock, thinking there's something more important to check. Still, Aster ponders the situation, worry etched on his face as he faces the challenge. The intimidating image of Househead Declan arises in his mind, representing the power he needs to overcome. With a victorious grin, Aster declares his chances have just increased, ready for whatever comes. Damien puts on his cap, completing his disguise, and excitedly asks what their next plan of action will be. Aster stares at his friend with a serious expression, pondering the right moment to initiate the chaos he planned. A confident smile appears on Aster's face, revealing his true intention is to cause immense chaos. Friesen is suddenly thrown to the ground, caught off guard by Aster's sudden aggression, who asserts himself over him. With a cold gaze, Aster declares Friesen's punishment will be to receive exactly 123 blows. A grim smile reveals Aster's determination to fulfill his promise, showing no mercy will be given. Aster and Damien observe their target with intense gazes, Aster displaying a menacing smile, ready for the coming lesson. He demonstrates how to use mana to clench his fist tightly, instructing to deliver rapid, repeated blows against the opponent. After subduing the target, Aster turns to Damien and says, "It's at times like these they say something is amazing." Damien kneels to heal a wounded boy, promising it won't hurt as he uses his healing magic. An aggressor intimidates his victim, who, terrified, wonders how many times he's been hit during the violent attack. In a swift move, Aster unleashes an overwhelming energy blow, knocking down his opponent with a single impact. Damien approaches Aster, touching his shoulder and asking with an excited smile if it's his turn yet. With an expression of pure terror, Aster pleads for the process to stop, unable to bear the pain. After the session ends, a group of people bows before Aster and Damien, thanking them for the day. After the commotion, the little boy Aster defended excitedly asks them to play again. A man approaches Aster, bowing and gesticulating in desperation, clearly intimidated by the young man's presence. Pointing to the house in the background, the man stutters that it's his, but Aster stares at him, showing no reaction. Aster senses a presence rapidly approaching. Suddenly, a menacing figure lands with great impact, confirming someone is coming for him. With a serious gaze, Aster analyzes the presence, describing it as fast, secretive, and unique, like that of a problem-solver specialist. Gathering power in his hand, Aster prepares for combat, aware of the amount of mana needed to face the enemy. Amidst the tension, Aster questions his identity, but his determined gaze shows he will not hesitate to act. He decides to gather and compress all his mana, focusing his power into a single point for an overwhelming attack. Leaping forward, Aster bets everything, aware this is his one decisive chance to win the fight. After releasing an immense amount of power, Aster falls to his knees, exhausted but victorious, in the center of the training arena. Alfredo lands with impact, screaming in shock and disbelief upon witnessing the young master's overwhelming skill. Alfredo grabs Damien, furiously questioning where he's been and what he's been doing after searching for him for so long. Desperate, Damien refuses to return to the family, shouting he'd rather die than be taken back. Alfredo carries the stubborn boy under his arm and formally introduces himself as the Blander family's butler. Alfredo approaches with a friendly smile, offering to take the children Aster saved to a safe location. Aster is surprised by the proposal, questioning why he would specifically take them to the Blandor family. As Alfredo walks away carrying one of the children, Aster agrees to the plan and thanks him for the offered help. Aster decides to visit the Blander family, pondering that, although he's strayed from his path, a good thing is always welcome. A carriage approaches the gates of the grand estate, which is announced as the home of the Blander family. Before the imposing mansion, Aster reflects that this is his first official visit to the Blander family home. Alfredo bids farewell, asking Lancy to rest comfortably and saying he's counting on her to take care of everything. Suddenly, Lancy is shocked to see Damien's mischievous gaze and smile, realizing he's up to something. Alerted by a panicked scream, Alfredo walks hurriedly through the grand hall to investigate the cause of the commotion. Alfredo, the butler, knocks on the door of an imposing office, waiting to report after returning from a mission. A man with a blonde mustache opens the door with a serious expression, allowing Alfredo's entry into the mysterious office. Lancy reports that Alfredo was in the 7th black and white zone, explaining she just brought him back. The matriarch casts a spell, questioning in shock if her son is truly in the dangerous 7th black and white zone. With closed eyes, the matriarch focuses on the magic circle, receiving remote information about her son's condition. Alfredo expresses his relief, stating it's fortunate for the matriarch and for whoever might have harmed the young master. The red-haired matriarch praises Alfredo's hard work, closing her eyes with a satisfied smile after the tense situation. Alfredo, the instructor, bows his head in respect, silently accepting the matriarch's acknowledgement of his work. The matriarch directs the conversation to Damien's new friend, who immediately asks if she's referring to Aster. Aster concentrates his magic, surprised to create a mana bullet, a technique considered extremely advanced for his age. The matriarch observes intently, admitting the boy's display of power reveals truly astonishing and rare talent. At this, Alfredo turns to the matriarch with a serious look, asking if he can request a special favor. Alfredo opens his arms triumphantly, certain his offer to be a prestigious family's butler is an opportunity no one would dare refuse. Aster is stunned by the proposal, while Alfredo boasts it's a unique opportunity for honor and high income for an orphan. Alfredo's confidence dissolves into perplexity, realizing Aster isn't accepting the honor of becoming a noble family's butler. Alfredo addresses Aster as boy, leaving him confused and wondering if he heard the informal greeting correctly. Damien suddenly approaches, loudly questioning what Alfredo meant by the word friend. Sensing danger, Aster quickly covers Damien's mouth to silence him and prevent him from speaking too much. Alfredo looks surprised at Aster, finally understanding the situation and saying, "Ah, I see," after hearing the boy's explanation. Aster covers Damien's mouth and denies swearing, but Damien mentally confirms he just cursed. Facing Alfredo, Aster agrees with the assessment, admitting the matter at hand is no small thing indeed. Alfredo warns Aster, comparing him to a goblin in the canyon, and insisting he must endure to survive. Aster reflects on the warning, but sees himself more as a wyvern, powerful and raised without knowing the world's dangers. With his back turned, Alfredo declares with determination that he, the butler, will personally show Aster the truth. Alfredo and Aster make an imposing entrance into the hall, with the head butler presenting himself grandiosely. The butler trainees bow in unison, greeting Alfredo as the master butler and demonstrating the rigid hierarchy. Observing the scene, Aster reflects that House Blando is no joke, recognizing the family's power and organization. A new group of well-trained teenagers impresses with their subtle aura, which fills the entire space. The new students observe the others with disdain, thinking their eyes make them look like mere goblins. Alfredo approaches Aster, eagerly asking if he will accept his proposal. Rejecting the offer, Aster steps back, coldly declaring his hatred for light. A student abruptly raises his hand, interrupting instructor Alfredo, who turns to listen. The student glares at everyone with an arrogant smirk, questioning if trainee Winstor has anything to add. Ignoring the others, the youth approaches instructor Alfredo, challenging him to a duel. With a confident smile, Alfredo approaches Aster, suggesting a simple duel with one of the youths. Aster glares at his opponents, aware he is a great annoyance, ready to prove it. Accepting the proposal, Aster requests an audacious condition. He wishes to choose his own opponent. Without hesitation, Aster points directly at his chosen opponent, declaring succinctly, "You." With a sinister smile and glinting eyes, Aster gestures to the students, challenging them to approach with an air of superiority. Alfredo reacts with a disapproving, visibly annoyed by Aster's audacious selection method. Aster smiles confidently at Alfredo, assuring full responsibility for his choices, despite the instructor's disapproval. In the center of a grand hall, Aster prepares for the test under the watchful eyes of Alfredo and the crowd. In the audience, Lancy and others watch in shock, but Damien observes with a calculating gaze, gesturing for silence. Damien whispers an urgent warning to his panicked companion. "Your friend is in real danger now." Aster covers his face, shocked, exclaiming, "Oh my God," in utter disbelief. Zira, the teacher, warns young Damien not to get involved, reminding him Lady Gamo will reprimand him. Ignoring the tension, Aster replies to Alfredo with a smile, saying, "Yes, understood," irritating Zira and Damien. A student begins explaining the rules, proposing a turn-based duel as Aster prepares to face the group alone. The opponent warns the instructor can interrupt at any moment, but Aster remains focused and determined. With disdain, a student glares at Aster, thinking the lazy brat acts as if he owns the world. As the test begins, Aster advances, his fist glowing, ready to unleash an overwhelming blow. His attack strikes the first opponent squarely, piercing their defense with overwhelming force, knocking them out instantly. In a blink, all test participants are defeated, falling to the ground, victims of Aster's immense power. Aster creates manospheres with a confident smile, warning his opponent never to underestimate the shorty. The opponent identifies the technique as a magic bullet, but dismisses it as basic mana control, useless in combat. Unleashing overwhelming dark magic, Aster teaches his opponent a lesson. Don't judge people so easily. Aster unleashes an overwhelming energy blast, knocking down multiple opponents at once and demonstrating his crushing power in the test. Facing an adversary, Aster warns him that the world is vast and bitter before delivering a blow, revealing his ruthless mindset. One of the students is in absolute shock, his face marked by the force of the attack, unable to believe what he just witnessed. Aster incapacitates another opponent with a decisive blow, leaving the other students shocked by the attack's violence and speed. Alfredo observes, impressed, and deduces that Aster's mana bullet was compressed at least 5 times to achieve such power. With an intimidating aura, Aster terrifies the other students, who wonder how he can be so good at simply beating people up. Alfredo recoils in shock upon seeing Lady Gamo and Lancy, stammering the noblewoman's name in surprise at their unexpected arrival. One of the boys observes with relief, thinking that Lancy has finally arrived to save them from that dangerous test. Lady Gamo questions what happened, forcing Alfredo to bow and nervously justify his actions as a mere test. The red-haired matriarch looks at the scene with disdain, questioning if that can even be called a test. Enraged, Aster shouts if that's a test, while a concerned Damien prepares to use magic. Calmly, the matriarch gives a clear order, instructing them to first gather the apprentices and remove them from the premises. Damien seems confused as he's instructed to return to his room for now, keeping him away from the commotion. As Alfredo sends him to his room, Aster glares at him with disdain, finding it a shame that the commotion has ended. Before the matriarch, Instructor Runfit nervously apologizes, admitting that despite his effort, he failed. With a clenched fist, Alfredo apologizes to the matriarch for losing his temper, ready to accept any punishment. Alfredo hesitates as he answers the red-haired matriarch, preparing to reveal an important detail about the duel. The image of the magic bullet being formed illustrates the technique in question, suggesting its use signifies something remarkable. The matriarch concludes that the technique's user has excellent mana control, finding the account a true spectacle. The red-haired matriarch learns from Alfredo that her succession proposal was firmly rejected, leading her to reconsider. With shining eyes, the matriarch decides she needs to reevaluate Aster and orders him brought to her presence immediately. Beside a surprised Damien, the matriarch greets Aster with a smile and invites him to sit, beginning their meeting. The matriarch presents a box to Aster, explaining it's the gift promised by Alfredo, leaving the young man surprised. As the box opens, an intense golden light explodes from within, leaving Aster utterly shocked by its contents. She explains the item is so rare that only recruits from Blandor's top 5 mage divisions receive it. The matriarch caresses Damien and offers Aster a gift, explaining it's thanks for his help and an apology. Suspicious, Aster asks if the gift obligates him to join the Blandor family, but the matriarch denies the condition with a smile. Aster's suspicion grows, and he asks if it's poisoned, but the matriarch calmly denies the suspicion once more. The red-haired matriarch questions Aster about the offer. He confirms there are absolutely no conditions, appearing interested in the gift she offers. As Damien picks up the gift from the table, the matriarch insists it's nothing significant, downplaying the item's importance. Aster smiles, pleased with his unexpected gain. The matriarch, however, prepares to make him a new proposition. The red-haired matriarch calls Aster by name while caressing Damien's head, asserting her authority over both boys. With a smile, the woman offers Aster a spot at the academy, proposing he accompany Damien in his future studies. The woman explains her decision is because Damien likes Aster, and the boy agrees, happy to stay with his friend. Aster considers the proposal with a serious gaze, thinking that despite the risks, this could be a good opportunity for him. Changing the subject, Aster faces the matriarch and says that, though unrelated, he has a curious question for her. The red-haired matriarch smiles enigmatically, clearly intrigued by Aster's unexpected question and awaiting his words. Alfredo is forced to kneel, exclaiming about his precious knees, while Aster stares him down with a confident, intimidating smile. Completely shocked, Alfredo looks up, barely believing he was so easily subdued by a mere boy. After the display of strength, Aster calmly exhales, showing a coolness and control that utterly contradict his youthful appearance. Aster meditates, impressed by his mana increase, realizing he's absorbing a top-tier item at only 10% of his capacity. He observes the pure energy in his hand, noting his flame-born body absorbs it without impurities, exceeding his expectations. With training complete, Aster's focus shifts to his next challenge as he thinks, finally, the academy, huh? Aster opens a hall door, stepping in to meet Damien. His expression is serious, anticipating what lies ahead. With a sidelong glance, Aster assesses the situation, his tense expression revealing the gravity of the impending moment. Annoyed, Aster wonders why Damien's family always has to be such a nuisance to him. Damien scrutinizes the boy before him, thinking disdainfully of his gray hair and common appearance. Aster gets annoyed hearing Damien say his irritating gaze and everything else perfectly suit him. With a touch of magic, Aster changes his hair to dark blue, leaving Damien shocked by the transformation. Alfredo rushes and grabs Aster, pleading for him to listen, as he needs to clear up a misunderstanding that has cost him sleep. In a panic, Alfredo shouts that it was all a mistake and that even if Aster becomes a butler, he doesn't need to try so hard. Watching the scene, Damien is completely shocked and confused by the unexpected interaction between Aster and the instructor. Damien glares at Aster, stating that his unpleasant gaze, like that of a dead goblin, confirms his suspicions about the boy. Pointing at Aster, Damien accuses him of blatant lying, but the boy admits guilt with a sarcastic, "Yeah, you got me." Alfredo approaches to ask if anything is wrong, but Aster smiles and reassures him, saying it's nothing serious. With a mischievous smile, Aster thinks the situation came at a good time, as he wasn't in a good mood already. Damien strides across the opulent hall with firm steps, moving towards his next engagement within the mansion. Butler. Alfredo closes his eyes with an air of contentment, satisfied with how things are unfolding. The red-haired matriarch stops writing and questions Aster, surprised by the morning meeting, asking if he has made a decision. With a serious and penetrating gaze, the matriarch stares at Aster, silently awaiting the answer that will define his next step. Aster responds with a confident smile, stating his decision directly. He will enroll in the academy. The red-haired matriarch smiles, expressing surprise at the swiftness of Aster's decision, who faces her with confidence. As the matriarch invites him to make himself comfortable, Aster formally thanks her for her consideration in her luxurious office. After Aster's departure, Alfredo enters the office to question the matriarch, referring to the young man as the boy. A mustachioed noble gets excited by Aster's passion, exclaiming, "That's our boy," while the matriarch observes calmly. He reveals his plan to create a hardship, questioning how Aster will pay for the next semester after they cover the first. The noble imagines himself as an angelic figure, a helping hand, that will appear with sponsorship when Aster is desperate. Alfredo is surprised by the sudden arrival of the red-haired matriarch, who glares down at him with an imposing presence. With a look of clear disdain, the matriarch expresses her dissatisfaction with the situation, judging everyone in the room. Her gaze sharpens in an instant, focusing on her target with a cold, calculating expression, ready to act. The matriarch considers the academy proposal a sloppy plan, but wonders about the true reason behind Alfredo's confidence. Meanwhile, Alfredo enters the room with an overly confident demeanor, as if his plan were already a guaranteed success. Away from the intrigue, Aster walks around the academy grounds, looking upwards with an attentive and observant expression. Aster arrives at the Mages' Hall, determined to find the person with whom he had an earlier disagreement. Inside the dark hall, a hooded figure approaches him with a candle, questioning his presence. With a sinister smile, the mysterious guide points the way, inviting Aster to follow deeper inside. Aster is suddenly transported to an unknown location, his face tense as he tries to process the unexpected situation and understand where he is. He reacts with surprise, confronted by a voice calling his name, directly questioning, "Are you Aster?" From the shadows, an imposing figure in ceremonial robes advances, their candle revealing a deliberate and mysterious approach. Aster is shocked and irritated, thinking, "That kid called me brother?" He can't believe the boy's audacity. At night, Aster infiltrates the estate, observing the area from a balcony as he prepares for his next move under the moonlight. With a serious face and glowing eyes, Aster remains focused on his objective, determined to proceed with his plan without hesitation. Aster, hooded, ponders the behavior pattern, deciding to divide it into stages for a clearer analysis of the enemy. In the first stage, a follower appears confused and distressed while reading the doctrines, showing the first signs of their transformation. The third stage is complete submission, where followers shave their heads, abandoning their former identities for their new cause. Aster faces his observer with a serious expression and a bead of sweat, feeling the pressure of the moment. Damien smiles in admiration, thinking, "Incredible, and he's so young," recognizing the talent he just witnessed. With a subtle smile, Damien continues to assess the situation, intrigued by the potential he sees in Aster. Damien sips from his cup with a satisfied air, thinking to himself that Aster has great compatibility with him. Holding a book emanating a golden light, Damien declares that the matter concerns the Blandor family's reputation. Aster is shocked to see the glowing book, questioning in disbelief what Damien is showing him. In a moment of calm, the matriarch tends to her garden, pruning the flowers while reflecting on recent events. The matriarch pauses, her serious and distant gaze revealing she is immersed in deep thoughts about the future. She feels relieved to think that Damien's departure for the academy, once a great concern, was resolved smoothly. The matriarch smiles, thinking how Aster is a good friend to Damien, even knowing his complicated past. She watches the two boys walking together, noting that Aster didn't distance himself upon learning Damien's true story. However, her gaze turns serious as she ponders that precisely because of this friendship, the situation could become dangerous. The red-haired matriarch reflects, thinking that there are many ways to keep someone close, and she will find a method. Aster faces the Blandor family's offer of a secret treaty, suspecting it's nothing but a trap. With an enigmatic smile, Damien surprises by stating he cannot read them, maintaining an aura of complete mystery. A man advises Aster not to rush his answer solely for the reward, as the matter should not be taken lightly. With a confident smile, Aster crosses his arms, seemingly unfazed by the warning and ready to proceed with his offer. Aster stares at him seriously and threatens him, stating that refusing his proposal after hearing it could cost him his life. Aster reacts with a disdainful gaze, cold sweat beading. He remains impassive before the provocation, silently assessing his interlocutor. A mysterious figure enveloped in purple energy emerges before Aster, who calmly observes the sudden and powerful apparition. The masked figure reveals a confident smile. She seems to enjoy the situation and the power she is demonstrating. With a satisfied smile, Damien informs Aster that he passed the test, finding the whole situation unbearably interesting. Aster, arms crossed, explains he needed someone trustworthy who wasn't a Blandor family member for his plan. Damien gestures dismissively, commenting that, in the end, all rebellious children from the Dirt and White regions are the same. Damien asks Aster to choose between speaking formally or informally, pointing out the inconsistency in his address. Damien explains his hesitation isn't due to a power struggle, as the Blandor family is very united. Upon mentioning the name Devilan, Damien provokes an immediate reaction in Aster, who stares at him with suspicion. The man interrupts Aster, revealing he obtained a secret treaty from the Devilan family and demands he wait to hear his dangerous story. He confesses his research was so forbidden that the Vice Dean himself would have hunted him down and tried to kill him to silence him. With a piercing gaze, he challenges Aster, asking if he cannot see the conspiracy unfolding before his eyes. With a shocked expression, Aster begins to understand that the person before him isn't just mad, but something far worse: the head of house. Declan tries to justify his actions, while Aster questions what kind of research he would conduct within his own family. Aster finally connects the dots, realizing the chief risked Declan's survival to attack the Blandor for Farron's sake. Damien asks Aster if he's available for a large-scale job. Aster, sighing, wants to know the reason for the visit. Beside Damien, a shadowy figure manifests, a silent demonstration of the power he truly wields to support his proposal. Aster stares intensely at Damien, processing the unexpected offer and the display of power, visibly intrigued by the situation. Seated at the table, Damien confirms Aster's suspicion with a smile, saying, "Haha, that's right," commencing their conversation. Aster and Damien exchange knowing smiles, recognizing the potential for a partnership between them to advance their objectives. Surrounded by research papers, Damien admits he can't make progress on his part of the study, confessing his stagnation. Damien hands the documents to Aster, assuring him he'll be duly rewarded for completing the task he's about to assign. With a smile, Damien entrusts Aster with the task of delivering his thesis to Professor Perun of Xenian Academy. Aster smirks to himself, realizing this simple task has become a grand opportunity for his plans. With a cunning smile, Aster demands the healing spell and the new Circle of 1,000 as compensation, questioning if only then they'll be companions. Seated at the table, Damien calls Aster shameless and demands a direct yes or no answer to the audacious proposal. With a sarcastic smile, Aster stares at the document handed to him, clearly despising the terms of that proposal. Aster extends the paper toward the masked man, who reacts with surprise at the boy's confident and unexpected demeanor. As the man tries to ease the tension by saying it was a joke, Aster tears up the contract, finding the whole situation rigid and boring. A silver-haired man laughs openly, finding the reported situation highly amusing. He thinks of Professor Perun, concluding with a smile that another lunatic has joined the academy. While organizing a stack of books, Aster finds a mysterious letter with a red wax seal. He tears open the envelope and begins reading the greeting, which addresses him as "My dearest Aster." With an expression of pure disdain, Aster thinks, "Dearest, my ass," revealing his contempt for the sender. Aster analyzes a document in his office, appearing surprised by what he reads as he considers the next steps of his grand plan. With a confident smile, Aster reflects that his plan has changed. It's no longer just about filling the tower with books. He envisions the tower's future, declaring it will be a center of learning for all, becoming its true identity. Damien observes the knight, thinking he planned to use Aster to deliver the thesis and discard him if he proved useless. With an intrigued smile, he turns and admits to himself that Aster is becoming an interesting companion. Agitated, Damien questions Aster's request, realizing that even though it was a test, he has no reason not to kill him. Alone in his room at night, Damien reflects on the newly formed alliance, pondering Aster's true intentions. With a smile, Damien thinks it's good that Aster hides things, as he's finally found a colleague on the same level as him. Looking out the window, he has a brief moment of doubt, but quickly dismisses it, finding the possibility unlikely. Aster finishes getting ready, his bags packed to depart for the academy, starting a new chapter in his life. With a determined gaze, he prepares for the future he will shape, unlike his tragic past life. As they walk through the courtyard, a guide informs them that both he and the young master are exempt from the admission exam. Lancey praises Aster's new uniform, commenting that he finally looks like a true academy student and that the outfit suits him well. Aster reflects on his exam exemption, considering it an advantage of his special admission as a member of a prestigious family. Suddenly, Aster turns in surprise upon hearing someone loudly call him "friend," interrupting his thoughts. Damien, very excited, waves and calls out to Aster. "Hurry up, let's go!" he shouts as the matriarch smiles beside him. The boy rushes into the carriage under Aster's gaze, eager to begin the journey to the academy. Aster watches the scene with a confident smile, knowing his plans are about to begin. Alfredo announces that at Xenion, the continent's largest academy, countless patrons await, setting the stage for new alliances. As the carriage approaches the Grand Academy, Aster's thought is clear. He plans to win over all these patrons for himself. Inside the carriage, Aster displays a confident smile, ready to execute his plan and change his destiny within Xenion's walls. The carriage moves forward, carrying Aster and Damien towards the Academy's entrance, where their futures will begin to be rewritten. Upon opening the ancient book, Aster has a strong impression, feeling that his expectations about the content were correct. He admires the work, recognizing that Henzi, the author, was indeed an exceptional mage and far ahead of his time. Aster realizes that Henzi's curriculum taught celestial principles, a vision that other arcane towers were unable to comprehend. Inside the carriage, Aster maintains a serious and determined expression, already planning his next steps upon reaching his destination. Lancey begins to instruct Aster on the founder-director's teachings, as he listens intently, absorbing every piece of information. Damien grabs Aster's arm to stop him from moving forward, surprising him with his sudden and firm action. Holding Aster, Damien laughs and warns that the entrance ceremony is not a first-come, first-served seating event. Aster decides to ignore the situation, thinking that the person in question might be direct, but not shameless, as they rush to the hall. Damien arrives excited, commenting that Lancey wasn't kidding about the lack of seats, but Aster realizes something is wrong. Suddenly, Damien trips and falls to the ground with a cry, as Aster observes the scene with a serious expression. As the two boys walk away, Alfredo watches them and calls them back, saying authoritatively, "Hold it right there." Alfredo lands a powerful punch on Damien, furiously yelling for the troublesome boy to disappear from his sight once and for all. Facing the newcomer who defends Damien, Alfredo angrily demands to know who the hell he thinks he is. Alfredo drops his briefcase to the ground and aggressively gestures at Aster, who places himself between him and Damien to protect him. Aster surprises everyone by conjuring a complex magical barrier, protecting those around during the confrontation. The crowd goes wild, shouting Aster's name and betting meal vouchers, fully confident in his victory. With the situation under control and the crowd on his side, Aster displays a confident smile, pleased with the fight's progress. Aster prepares for combat, taking a fighting stance as a powerful purple aura emanates from his body. Alfredo cracks his knuckles, stating with a smile that his opponent's non-noble status doesn't matter. With a wild grin, Aster tugs at his collar, accepting the challenge with an eager, almost unsettling confidence. Alfredo clenches his fists and provokes his opponent, asking disdainfully, "What's wrong, are you scared?" Enveloped in an aura of power, Alfredo charges furiously, delivering a potent punch directly at his adversary. Aster takes a combat stance and reveals his advantage, stating, "I'm not alone, there are two of us." Aster lunges forward and lands a powerful punch, proving his opponent's confidence in enduring the blow was a mistake. After feeling the impact, his adversary questions himself, shocked by the blow's force. Is he really a mage? The opponent grows even more confused upon realizing his wound is healing, suspecting Aster used healing magic. Damien begins to conjure a light spell, astonishing the man before him with the manifestation of his power. With a smile of pure joy, Damien marvels at the magic circle he created with his own hands. Aster appears and lands a devastating kick on the man, criticizing him for still having time to look around. Aster attacks Damien relentlessly, explaining the training dynamic. One takes a beating, so both grow stronger. Meanwhile, an ally uses healing magic, ensuring that no matter how hard the blow, recovery is instant. This incessant combination of attack and healing creates a brutal cycle, making them seem like a pair of mad fools in their method. Sensing his adversary's immense pressure, the man questions himself, sweating coldly, if what he's feeling is fear. His fear quickly transforms into a furious roar as he tries to muster his courage to face the threat. Giving him no time to react, Aster lunges forward and lands a devastating punch directly to his opponent's face. Alfredo is struck by a powerful energy blast, yelling not to be underestimated as he's hurled backward by the impact. With his face contorted in rage and surprise, Alfredo regains his composure, refusing to be defeated by his opponent's unexpected attack. As he falls, Alfredo admits the blow hurt, but immediately prepares a counterattack, materializing magical blades to strike back. A green-haired student steps forward, calmly declaring he will be the first to act during the confrontation. Suddenly, Dolampe lets out a scream of pure terror, his face contorted with fear at what he sees. Consumed by panic, Dolampe charges in a desperate attack against the student who provoked him. Aster summons a blue lightning bolt, recalling it's a technique he developed with his companions in his past life. He unleashes his collision style, a purely technical application of magic, clashing against Dolampe's attack in an explosion of energy. The students react with astonishment as a yellow light barrier suddenly explodes, creating a surprising force field. Piercing the energy barrier, a mysterious figure emerges at high speed, moving toward the center of the commotion. With a determined gaze, Aster raises his fist in a gesture of victory, enveloped by the dust of the battle he just won. Aster observes the crowd, awaiting applause and reactions, as his performance was calculated to elicit a specific response. Damien, visibly excited by the outcome, congratulates Aster with a pat on the head, showing his joy at his friend's victory. Beside Damien, student Chenbi observes the scene with a disdainful smile, calling the commotion truly vulgar. The other academy students are in an uproar over the fight that broke out, creating a great commotion in the ceremony hall. One of the instructors explodes in anger, shouting and questioning who would dare start a fight on the very first day of class. Aster and Damien arrive at the academy hall and nervously peek through the door, assessing the situation before entering. Upon seeing the hall, they feel relieved, realizing the entrance ceremony hasn't started yet, giving them time. In the crowd, other students are already whispering about Aster, questioning how someone with his physique managed to defeat a martial artist. Damien adjusts Aster's collar with a smug smile, telling him to stop drooling and compose himself. Annoyed by the provocation, Aster wonders what could be more important than the academy's entrance ceremony. As the director gets ready, his attention is captured by Professor Zira, who walks past an outdoor balcony. With a fierce shout, Professor Zira demands everyone's attention, interrupting the ceremony with her imposing presence. Dahlia defends the student, stating that the academy wouldn't have admitted her if her skills were truly insufficient. Professor Zira is surprised by Dahlia's intervention, her expression showing she didn't expect such a defense. While awaiting the start of class, one of those present wonders when the professor will finally appear to begin the lesson. A long-haired man introduces himself as Perun, the professor in charge of the basic principles of Magologia course. Aster analyzes the new instructor, thinking he expected a different atmosphere and realizing he's quite distinct from what he imagined. As they are instructed to proceed to the dorms, Damien walks cheerfully, unaware of Aster's watchful gaze beside him. With a single word, Aster fills Damien with overwhelming dread, making him scream in pure terror. Aster walks the hallway, amused that Damien screamed so loud from a mere taunt. Aster opens his top-floor room's door, concluding it's obviously the right place for him. He inspects the bed's supplies, noting the academy provides the same basic items to all students. As he unpacks, Aster reflects that, in time, each will buy their own items to flaunt their status. Aster eyes the newcomer suspiciously, trying to recall his face and if his name was Paul. Aster's new roommate enters with his luggage, and the two students stare at each other for the first time. With a serious, challenging gaze, the new student stares at Aster, revealing strong determination in his blue eyes. A golden-eyed student confronts Aster closely, firmly demanding, "Answer." Tension fills the air between them. Met with silence, the student sighs in frustration, showing impatience with Aster's demeanor. Aster, however, remains impassive, staring down his rival with a cold, determined gaze, unyielding. A man observes Aster, curious about the true ability of the student who entered the academy as its top-ranked. Suddenly, the man lunges at high speed to test Aster's reflexes, who leans back in surprise. Impressed, the man praises Aster's sword-drawing posture, commenting his technique is quite good. Aster touches a blonde-haired boy's shoulder, who reacts with surprise to the unexpected gesture. Upon seeing Aster, Damien runs to him, cheerfully calling him friend and gesturing him closer. Damien walks animatedly beside Aster, who observes him with a serious expression as they cross the academy courtyard. Aster stares at Damien seriously, explaining he was busy and couldn't meet him earlier. Damien comments on Xenian Academy's vastness, while Aster observes the place with a calculating expression. Aster closes his eyes, pondering an unsettling sensation that brushes his senses, reminding him of his past life. As they walk the academy courtyard under the evening sky, Damien plays with a pensive Aster's hair. Damien marvels at the lake, but his wonder turns to surprise as mysterious energy begins to crackle in the water. Aster feels exhausted, as if babysitting, realizing that's why Lancey paired him with Damien. Despite his thoughts, Aster turns to Damien with a cunning smile, capturing the boy's attention. Immediately, Damien reacts with pure admiration, his eyes shining with excitement at Aster's confident demeanor. On the balcony, Aster watches the sunset with Damien and wonders aloud what name they should give the lake they created. The conversation about creating statues and naming lakes leaves Lancey, the academy employee, completely shocked by the boy's audacity. Damien gets excited by the idea and suggests they commission a dragon statue, imagining how magnificent its scales would be. Lancey feels an inexplicable chill and wonders why she's trembling, sensing the danger approaching the academy. As Damien walks excitedly, Aster calmly follows him, both approaching the site of the conflict. Observing the second magic hall, Aster confirms his suspicions, concluding that Professor Perun's lab is the target. An observer smiles, satisfied that their spies have finally started following the target, thinking this is the perfect moment to act. Under the night sky, the cloaked follower moves nimbly across the city rooftops, beginning the pursuit stealthily and swiftly. With impressive speed, the spy leaps between buildings, rapidly approaching his destination, undetected by the darkness. A cloaked figure lands in a hall, finding their contact who was waiting and confirms, "You are here." Alone with his contact in the empty hall, the cloaked man looks around and asks where the others are. After hearing the explanation, the other cloaked figure ponders the situation, understanding what's happening. A team member questions the mission, finding it impossible to infiltrate the academy without the help of the organization's strongest members. The leader calmly reveals that a powerful reinforcement will join them, the fire demon, Callahan, to ensure success. Upon hearing Callahan's name, the other member is completely shocked, paralyzed by the infamous mercenary's reputation. The vice leader of Declan's mage troop, the Red Jewel, smiles. He believes the target would be sufficient, but still hesitates. One of the cloaked figures trembles at the thought of the vice leader's cruel nature, who doesn't hesitate to use any means to complete a mission. The man's face contorts in terror and cold sweat as he realizes the terrible implications of working with someone so merciless. Aster remembers the dangerous Callahan, reflecting that he was already at his peak even when Aster himself was still active in his past life. In a flashback, Callahan's imposing figure appears before a noble in his throne room, demonstrating his influence and power. Amidst the destruction, it is revealed that a dangerous man's true rise to power occurred after the war with the Blandor. This rise culminated in what became known as the Inferno of Declan, a firepower no one could stop. With a determined look, Aster decides that, to change the future, he needs to capture the mage responsible for this tragedy. He knows that Callahan's magic, one of Declan's arcane arts, makes him a renowned mage and a target worth the risk. Aster reflects that he already possesses Henzi's thesis, but his pursuers are moving to deliver the supposed target to Professor Perun. Hooded figures wait in the shadows, convinced their target can be none other than the thesis they were ordered to obtain. With a determined gaze, Aster confirms the target being delivered is a decoy, a false thesis to mislead his adversaries. In the dead of night, Aster silently prepares, gathering the necessary equipment for his mission in his room. Completing his disguise, he dons a dark, hooded cloak, ready to move unseen through the shadows. His eyes gleam with fierce determination, revealing the gravity of his plans as he prepares to act. Lying in bed, Aster feigns sleep, but his eyes remain open and watchful in the room's darkness. Elsewhere, a long-haired man works by candlelight, his expression serious and concentrated. He scoffs in disdain, cursing House Declan in his thoughts, calling them rats. Seated at his desk, the troubleshooter's manager bristles at the invasion, questioning the meaning of such a bold entry into his territory. The manager stares at the hooded intruder, identifying him as a mercenary as Aster silently approaches his desk. With wide eyes, Aster reacts to the manager's perception, his identity as a mercenary seemingly discovered. The head of house. Declan watches a letter being left on his desk, commenting that perhaps there will be no second chance for the sender. Receiving the correspondence from his subordinate, Chief Declan finally identifies the mastermind behind the conspiracy. Henzi, so it was you. Suspicious, Declan muses that a cunning fox like Henzi wouldn't be caught so easily, suspecting a larger scheme. A red-haired man introduces himself as Callahan, arrogantly questioning if a reclusive professor would know him. Aster and his companion observe in silence, surprised and on guard at the mysterious man's sudden arrival. Ignoring Callahan's posturing, the professor coldly replies he has never heard of him, wiping away his arrogant smile. In a dark room, A man confronts two suspicious individuals, initiating a tense meeting under the moonlight. Tired of the discussion, the red-haired man rages, proposing a simple solution to resolve their impasse. Pointing directly at the hooded man, he chooses him, making clear the next step of his plan. Professor Zira channels immense power, threatening to leave her adversary with only one eye and one arm as a memento of her strength. One of the masked attackers is shocked to realize his attack has been completely neutralized, with water droplets suspended in the air. The long-haired man remains calm and indifferent, demonstrating absolute control over the situation and the magic around him. Observing the city in flames, a man deduces that the Declans cast a blackout spell, since no alarms were triggered. He turns to Aster, pondering that the rookie mercenary is the only one he can trust to handle the situation. Amidst the flames, the long-haired man with a serious expression adjusts his gloves, showing his resolve to act. With a maniacal grin, the red-haired opponent challenges Aster to a dangerous game, asking with gleaming eyes, "Wanna play?" Engulfed in flames, the adversary laughs madly, visibly enjoying the battle's intensity and destructive power. Aster watches the attack with a serious, focused gaze, preparing to react to his opponent's display of power. With intensely glowing eyes, Aster channels devastating magic, conjuring a complex magic circle to annihilate his enemies once and for all. From afar, a hooded figure watches the energy explosion strike the fortress, a cataclysmic event unfolding before their eyes. Observing the destruction, Aster thinks to himself that things are finally getting serious, preparing for the next phase of the confrontation. A hooded figure observes from a distance, stating it's been a long time since their last visit. With intensely glowing blue eyes, he reveals his partially masked face, emanating an aura of power. He firmly clenches his fist, declaring that his target is Moon. Under the night sky, a masked Aster asks permission to act as a righteous troubleshooter once more. With a subtle smile, he admits to himself that, to be honest, he was never truly righteous in his actions. A red-haired mage casts a fire spell with a maniacal grin, remarking that the mercenary is holding up well. Amidst the destruction, Aster recovers, gasping, barely believing he survived his opponent's powerful attack. He looks at the talisman on his chest and realizes, relieved, that the protective artifact was what saved him. How lucky, he thinks. Aster faces his opponent, a dark figure with gleaming eyes preparing for a new confrontation with overwhelming energy. The two powers clash violently. The enemy's ice attack collides with Aster's fire blast in a battle of elements. The opponent touches Aster's shoulder, saying he can now trust him. Aster is surprised to see the ether enchantment on his sword. Aster wields his sword, determined. He knows there's no turning back and that he'll die if he can't defend against the attack. Amidst a magic explosion, Aster advances against the fire attack, using his ether sword to block the devastating blow. Aster conjures a defensive magic circle and confirms the guard has been eliminated, preparing for the next phase of the confrontation. Facing several simultaneous spells, Aster concludes that if he continues like this, he'll be dragged into the enemy's rhythm. As his opponent prepares a trump card with a maniacal grin, Aster decides he'll also have to play his own hand. The manager of the troubleshooters challenges them to a duel, unleashing a storm of red magic daggers against Aster and Damien. Surrounded by lightning, the manager grinds his teeth in frustration, thinking, "Damn it!" seeing his attack was contained. He observes Aster and Damien's magic attack, realizing they are both monsters, leaving no opening for a counterattack. One of the hooded men stares in awe at the magic storm, while his companions shield themselves from the overwhelming force of the wind. As his aura manifests, the group leader turns and urgently asks, "How many troubleshooters are left?" A young hooded man watches in shock and panic as a figure lands with a powerful impact right before him. A violent magic explosion erupts on the battlefield, and a desperate scream confirms everyone's suspicions. It's an ambush. "Behold my entrance," Aster says, emerging from the shadows with a determined look to turn the tide. Aster takes an elevated position atop the rubble, while Evelyn prepares a defensive magic circle on the ground. Aster charges with speed, delivering a powerful blow to Callahan, who reacts with shock and surprise at the unexpected attack. With a cold, determined gaze, Aster faces his opponent and firmly declares, "This place will be your grave." Callahan is paralyzed with terror, his eye wide with fear as the energy of Aster's attack completely engulfs him. The original Aster unleashes a powerful energy attack, channeling an immense burst of power toward his enemy. He coughs blood and realizes in despair that he's suffering a severe mana backlash as a consequence of his attack. Weakened, Aster looks up and sees a mysterious hooded figure descending from the heavens, ready to strike. Spitting blood, the red-haired man admits to himself that he cannot continue, feeling the weight of his injuries and exhaustion. As he tries to recover, he wonders where on earth such a powerful adversary came from, completely perplexed by the situation. His eyes widen, fixed on the threat before him, as his mind processes the overwhelming strength of his enemy. Enveloped in his cloak, Aster unleashes a devastating electrical attack, moving with a speed and precision that surprise his adversary. Ignoring who his opponent is, the original Aster roars that he will kill him, unleashing a wave of red magic power of pure fury. The original Aster's spell materializes into countless red blades that advance to annihilate his target in an explosive magic collision. A mysterious figure with a dark mask and red hair appears, their eyes fixed on their target with a menacing intensity. He conjures scarlet magic circles, admitting he doesn't know his opponent's identity while preparing his attack. Consumed by fury and crackling with energy, the man shouts his promise to annihilate his adversary by any means. A relentless energy bombardment is unleashed, completely engulfing the target in an explosion of magic power. The masked man takes the attack head-on, his gaze impassive amidst the light of the explosion. Gasping after the effort, the red-haired assailant watches the dust settle and wonders, "Did I hit him?" Callahan prepares a flask, confident that upon regrouping with the troubleshooters, he will finally subdue his opponent. A voice interrupts him, asking, "Is that all?" Callahan is shocked to feel a weapon pressed against his head. Amidst an explosion, his adversary reveals that he understands Callahan's cold nature, despite his lunatic appearance. A masked mage conjures a magic circle, preparing a powerful attack with a swift gesture of his hands. He warns that his opponent's coldness will be his downfall, as he unleashes powerful magic from his circle. Surprised, his opponent can barely process the attack's speed, thinking how quickly the spell approaches. Enveloped in an aura of power, the original Aster descends from the heavens, landing with an impact that shakes the ground around him. Unexpectedly, the original Aster is shot in the head, stumbling forward as blood splatters from the fatal wound. Observing from afar, a hooded figure recognizes the shooter and thinks surprised. As expected, it's Callahan. A masked and hooded man stares at the newcomer, scolding him for his delay. "Now then, you're late." The approaching man is identified by the hooded observer as Professor Perun. Professor Perun justifies his delay, stating he was busy freezing some rats, as we see his victims trapped in ice. A long-haired man channels blue electricity into his hand, preparing for combat with a calm and controlled expression. Beneath his mask, Aster observes the enemy's power, breaking into a cold sweat as he realizes the magnitude of the threat he poses. The man stares at his target with a cold, calculating gaze, confident in his superiority and ready to strike. Househead. Declan begins to read a secret report, his expression serious as he flips through the pages under the moonlight. As Declan reads, a mysterious figure with a mask and hood watches him intently from the shadows, unnoticed. Declan closes the document, finally understanding the situation. He thinks, confirming his suspicions. So that's how things are. Beneath his hood and mask, Aster gazes at his new ally with an enigmatic look, preparing to reveal his true plans. With a gesture for silence, he indicates that the conversation isn't over yet, and that his proposal is far grander than imagined. Aster then declares his grand objective. "I will build a tower, a tall and magnificent tower to house books for everyone." The masked man asks his contact how they will maintain communication, as he needs to deliver the next document. He then offers a communication crystal, explaining that one simply needs to break off a fragment to call him when necessary. The man in black accepts the bracelet, solidifying the agreement to stay in contact regarding future missions. In the dark forest, a mysterious figure with a mark on their face suddenly appears, enveloped by a subtle aura and an imposing presence. Aster, cloaked and hooded, is escorted by a knight to the entrance of a ruined tower under the night sky. The knight supports Aster as he adjusts his mask, preparing to enter the tower and keep his identity hidden during the mission. Aster watches the others, thinking this is his cue to blend in with the students and remain unnoticed for now. Suddenly, Damien appears and calls Aster friend, asking where he's been, as he felt it had been too long since they last met. As Aster reflects that the evidence will keep the Declan family quiet, Damien notices his expression and asks if he's all right. Aster shakes his head, confused about what triggers the reaction, as Damien's voice suggests he lower his pants for inspection. Refusing Damien's idea, Aster decides he needs to investigate further and turns to the Academy's largest library for answers. With a serious and determined expression, Aster prepares to enter the library and unravel the mysteries surrounding him. A boy approaches Aster with a smile, directly praising his fighting skills and putting him on high alert. Aster turns, tense, wondering if he was observed. He fears that the discovery of his identity could bring grave trouble. Aster smiles, pleased to have made a name for himself, yet annoyed by his companion's lack of respect. Ignoring his companion's loud laughter, Aster walks on with a visibly annoyed expression. With a mischievous grin, the boy reveals that the real reason for following him was simply wanting to be with him. Aster reflects that, despite the academy promising equality, his humble origins make him an outcast among the other students. As a peer expresses his nervousness about recent events, Aster listens with a subtle, enigmatic smile. Interacting with the other student, Aster internally questions if this is what a normal conversation feels like, something new to him. Aster reflects that, in this life, he's only encountered lunatics and has even forgotten what normalcy feels like, surrounded by eccentric figures. Upon arriving at the academy, the grandeur of the building imposes itself, marking the beginning of a new phase in his journey. Inside a vast auditorium, dozens of students are already gathering, creating a buzz of anticipation before classes begin. While Aster studies intently, Damien complains of sleepiness beside him, visibly bored with reading in the library. Suddenly, the student Chenbi approaches and places a book on the table, surprising Aster with his unexpected arrival. Feeling sleepy, Chenbi reflects on Aster, finding it curious that, even without noble birth, he is so cheerful and not at all shy. Aster observes a classmate and thinks he's a decent person, asking if he heard the commotion. The student exalts as he speaks of Professor Zira, who decimated a horde of trolls and suddenly spots her. Seeing the professor approaching, Aster observes her intently and thinks to himself, "Ah, now I remember." Professor Zira introduces herself to the class, downplaying a recent disturbance and asking everyone to focus on their studies. Zira announces that the first lesson will be a mana measurement to assess each student's quantity and quality. A student named Miss Argan is chosen to go first, appearing nervous as she is the first to take the test. In a display of skill, two mages face off, conjuring magic circles of opposing energies in a fierce combat. Aster observes the fight, pondering that mana quality, which affects precision, is more important than raw power quantity. Professor Zira recognizes the involvement of Baron Pelham's house, shocked by what she is witnessing during class. Evelyn, in turn, becomes furious upon seeing the scene, thinking to herself that her suspicions about the opponent were correct. A student becomes utterly terrified, tears in her eyes, facing the professor's intimidation during class. At the podium, Professor Zira challenges the silent room, asking if anyone else would like to attempt to answer her question. Zira points to a student who stutters, "Yes?" She confronts him, sarcastically questioning if his name is Yes. Aster considers the question, thinking that, from another perspective, quantity might indeed overcome quality in a confrontation. Pressured, Aster responds that he has none, leaving Damien confused about a possible rule he might not know. With a serious expression, Professor Zira begins to give her answer, stating that she believes casting speed is essential. With her back to the class, Professor Zira ends the debate, stating she has heard all the answers she needed. A student cries as she is consoled, understanding that all the given answers were, in fact, very close to being correct. Aster tenses, realizing that Professor Zira's lesson was about the absence of a single correct answer from the start. The professor explains that a mage must never lose their conviction or be swayed, needing to maintain their will until the end. With a piercing gaze, Professor Zira challenges the audience, directly questioning the capability of all present. The students in the audience react with nervousness and apprehension, feeling the pressure of the professor's intimidating words. In contrast, Aster sighs with an expression of disdain, clearly unimpressed by Zira's speech. Professor Zira faces the class with a severe and intimidating gaze, establishing her authority before the new students. Startled by the professor's presence, a student responds in panic, stuttering, "Yes, ma'am," as she wipes away tears. While a classmate cries in admiration, Aster observes with disdain, thinking to himself, "Envious of what, exactly?" Professor Zira stares down Aster with an intimidating gaze, while the boy watches her apprehensively, wondering what she will reveal. A glowing mana orb is discovered, and the students exclaim, "Whoa!" marveling at the power emanating from the magical artifact. With a confident smile, Zira places her hand on the mana orb, preparing to initiate the student's evaluation test. Aster and the other students stare in shock at the display of power, as murmurs of surprise spread through the crowd. With a mysterious gaze, Damien puts a finger to his lips, signaling for silence as mana manifests around him. Professor Zira gives an order, and a student rushes towards her, nervously responding near the mana orb. Upon touching the mana sphere, an intense blue glow manifests, signaling the magical artifact's activation with a hum of power. The magical artifact, now revealed as a gem, displays a complex runic circle that glows with immense energy. The student watches, astonished, as a pillar of light erupts from the device, projecting a magical symbol into the air. A magic circle displays a student's mana test result, revealing a power level of only 4. Professor Zera instructs the next student to simply infuse her mana, and the orb in her hand begins to glow intensely. Zera observes the results with a confident smile, clearly satisfied with the potential she is witnessing in her class. Observing a student, Aster thinks to himself that he can already see her future, demonstrating his prior knowledge of events. As students prepare for the test, one comments that they need to focus on their breathing technique for mana refinement. Unexpectedly, Damien faints during training, and Aster reacts with shock, exclaiming in surprise at his friend's collapse. Dolanpe achieves refinement level 6, double the average, leaving a spectator shocked and envious of her power. Despite the impressive result, Dolanpe maintains a cold and calculating expression, revealing her indifferent personality. Aster observes her and deduces she's from the same house as Dahlia, but a collateral line, finding her presentation pretentious. Dolanpe observes the crowd from above with a confident smile, aware that all eyes are on her. While waiting, Damien makes a face of boredom, contrasting with Aster's serious and attentive expression beside him. Suddenly, the group stands up and Damien waves enthusiastically, trying to catch someone's attention in the crowd. Aster covers his face, thinking embarrassedly not to rush, wondering why he's the only one ashamed of the situation. A young man enthusiastically approaches a mana measuring stone, commencing the magical aptitude test. Damien approaches the magic stone with wide eyes of curiosity, while Aster remains by his side, observing his reaction. Damien places his hand on the orb, unleashing an overwhelming wave of power that resonates through the hall as he performs the test. The magic circle glows intensely, revealing such a shocking result that spectators classify it as the power of a true monster. While everyone reacts in shock, Aster observes calmly, thinking this is the natural reaction of ordinary people facing a true genius. Aster reflects on Damien's genius, realizing he far surpassed the average, much to the boy's own surprise. Catching a glimpse of Damien's bloody future, Aster understands the boy was born different and comprehends the origin of the Blandor monster. Aster plans to make Damien transcend the ordinary, ensuring the Blandor family becomes an eternal obstacle for House Declan. Aster introduces himself to the instructor, deciding to keep a low profile, as he believes a mediocre score is the safest option. With his hand glowing, Aster focuses his mana, thinking how to subtly adjust its properties to control the outcome. Aster concentrates his mana in his hand, preparing to release the exact amount needed for the refinement test. He notices something strange and questions why the measurement system's basic limit is set so low. The magic circle activates, revealing an impressive and unexpected level 10 refinement index. Immediately, the result begins to glitch and corrupt, indicating a critical and unexpected system error. An intense light erupts from the artifact, and the bewildered spectators question the limit-exceeded message that appears. Amidst the general bewilderment, Damien explodes into vibrant celebration, seemingly the only one to understand what happened. Suddenly, Damien's expression turns serious and his heterochromatic eyes glow, revealing an intimidating aura of power. Damien watches with a confident smile, his heterochromatic eyes gleaming as he anticipates his rival's test result. An instructor nervously presents the measuring orb to Aster, who prepares to perform the mana refinement test. Suddenly, Aster's face contorts in shock and disbelief upon seeing the result, questioning what just happened. Aster is shocked to see a dark, younger version of himself appear before him as an apparition. With eyes gleaming in anger, Damien declares that, according to his friend, this kind of situation is complete nonsense. Professor Zera stands thoughtfully by the window, reflecting on recent events at the academy. With a serious gaze, she ponders House Declan's and the Mage Callahan's attack on Professor Perun. She decides not to get involved, thinking Perun was famous and the matter is none of her business. In her luxurious office, Professor Zera watches an assistant approach her desk, bringing the documents she expected. The young man formally hands over the clipboard with the student evaluations, which Zera receives to begin her detailed analysis. Reading the report, Zera comments that the semester's overall level seems good, but Furion denies results are disappointing. Damien summons an immense blue energy dragon, asking his friend if the creature's appearance is suitable. With his heterochromatic eyes glowing, Damien wonders if the form his power took seems acceptable. Aster watches Damien's power manifest, satisfied that the display will be more than enough. Damien shapes a mana creature, and Aster instructs him to make it more dynamic, wings spread, and ready to pounce. A classmate, impressed, notes the ease of the change, recalling how a lion statue at home looks better with its mouth agape. Damien holds the Mana Dragon, thinking even the Great Furion couldn't manage a spirit body form with such ease. Clasping a mana crystal, Damien smiles radiantly, stating he had fun, and coming to the academy was the right choice. Aster is utterly astonished by Damien's display of happiness, a vision of innocence that leaves him shocked and speechless. The troubleshooter's manager takes a white cloak with a serious expression, preparing to investigate his recent find. "Let's take a look," he says, as the cloak in his hands emits a powerful magical aura, revealing a brilliant spell circle. From within the cloak, he pulls a small scroll, examining it intently, curious about his new discovery. Aster tests his new ability, enveloping his body in energy and concluding his defensive power is quite formidable. He recalls Declan's secret grimoire, which contained the Red Flame, magic inferior to Ahin's Blue Flame. Aware that mastery is crucial, Aster decides it will take time to learn, as it's not something mastered overnight. A classmate turns to Aster, discreetly asking if he's heard the latest academy news. Aster reflects on the evaluation, reminding himself it will consist of 3 different practical tests. Aster faces the upcoming event with indifference, thinking the challenge matters little, so long as he passes without major issues. Meanwhile, Chenbi is already deep in strategy, planning to use defensive magic to outpace everyone in the canyon race. Aster commands silence as he approaches Professor Perun, who is visibly disturbed beside Damien. Professor Perun reacts with dread upon hearing "test corridor," his face contorting in fear. In utter despair, the professor accuses Aster of lying, while Damien watches with an impassive expression. A student scoffs, finding the labyrinth test easy, while Aster watches the situation with a serious, calculating expression beside him. The instructor reveals the true challenge, materializing enormous crystal golems to serve as obstacles for students within the labyrinth. Beside an impassive Aster, a classmate despairs upon learning they'll face golems, questioning the performance test's difficulty. The instructor reveals a crystal golem, explaining its exposed cores and durability adjusted to student levels. Observing the student's reaction, the instructor disdainfully reflects that mages truly lack composure before unexpected challenges. An instructor evaluates the female students, noting that despite their tension, their wills are strong, and their eyes burn with life and determination. Observing Damien, the instructor dismisses him, judging the boy to be completely oblivious and uninterested, without a single thought. He interrupts the assessment and declares, "Enough," revealing a labyrinth guarded by a mana golem, to the students' shock. The students, including Aster, react nervously to the proposal, surprised by the instructor's sudden change of plans. Noting the general apathy, the instructor addresses the crowd, stating he will make a suggestion to motivate them. In the library, Aster realizes he found no trace of the magic volume on the lower level, frustrating his search. 3 silhouetted figures stand out in a grand hall, as an ominous thought lingers, suggesting there is no other alternative. With a confident smile, Aster remembers he memorized everything, aware of the advantage his knowledge of the future provides. A student desperately pleads for flowers and a firestone, but his request is denied because his primary element is flame. A student desperately asks for a golem controller, but the professor denies the request, calling it a dirty trick. As students call out to him, the professor observes the situation with an indifferent expression, unfazed by the commotion. Another student conjures a plant, proudly declaring he can use plant magic even without a primary element. A voice announces that starting locations will be designated, instructing students to find their names and assigned positions. Before an immense holographic labyrinth, Aster locates his position, discovering he was assigned to starting point 3. Meanwhile, Frizen is confronted by another student who stares at him with disdain, clearly annoyed by his presence in the group. With a furious glare, Aster warns not to be the target of his opponent's contempt any longer, tired of being disrespected. Aster throws gold coins, promising to show his rival how difficult life can become because of that sum. Aster processes the duel rules, understanding that even if the barrier is destroyed, the bracelet will remain a problem. With an expression of clear displeasure, a student awaits the test's start, the moment's tension reflected on her face. Seated at a large table, the examiners prepare for the test's start, with documents and assessment orbs before them. With the message "Warp complete," students are transported to the virtual arena, and the assessment begins immediately. An evaluator observes that Dahlia and Damien share the same starting point, pondering its implications for the test. In the control room, panic sets in as the screen freezes, and an assistant shouts, questioning the magic eyes check. Indifferent to the chaos, a superior places his mug on the table and coldly asks for the situation's starting point. The revelation of starting point 3 causes a reaction of pure terror in one of the assistants, who can barely breathe. With a sharp and determined gaze, Aster prepares for the challenge about to begin, demonstrating his unwavering confidence. The teleportation is successfully completed, and Aster leads his group of students out of the magic circle, entering the test site. As soon as they arrive, a violent explosion erupts before them, marking the dangerous and immediate start of the test they must face. Amidst the flames, Frizen sneers, shouting that he will crush his opponent's arrogant confidence. With gleaming eyes, Aster recalls that being hit means disqualification, and based on this, he devises his combat strategy. Aster smiles as he nimbly dodges, using his magic to evade the attack instead of confronting it directly. Aster lands a powerful punch on Frizen's face, who screams in pain from the impact. Aster moves swiftly, dodging attacks while thinking that, despite winning, the fight is strangely exhausting. As Frizen vows revenge, Aster dismisses him with disdain, telling him to get lost and expels him with magic. Aster observes his magic ring and calculates the gold deduction, reflecting that without Damien, it's difficult to control his power and maintain the role of a victim. With a thoughtful gaze, Aster wonders what kind of impression he should make, planning his next move to manipulate the situation. With defiant calm, Aster stretches, preparing to act again, while others watch his actions with disbelief. Frizen panics and pleads with his lord, shouting that everyone will fail if the confrontation continues this way. A rival student summons an imposing golem to block the path, laughing and asserting that no one will get past it. As the golem is attacked, a student is astonished, questioning how someone can control the creature with vine seeds. With a determined expression, Aster faces his aggressors, refusing to yield to their demands or intimidations. Suddenly, Aster feels strange and wonders if he was hit by magic without realizing it, completely confused by the situation. A sinister voice echoes, and Aster immediately realizes it's no one from the academy, sensing the approaching threat. The intruder declares there are no demands, only consequences, which sends shivers down even the indifferent Damien's spine, putting him on alert. As the voice commands everyone to die in despair, control devices fail and magic eyes go dark, trapping everyone. The troubleshooter's manager bangs the table, furious, demanding to know who the intruder is, but his subordinate abruptly cuts him off. With a face contorted in panic, the subordinate rushes to carry out orders, understanding the gravity of the situation they face. He runs desperately through the hallways, shouting to call the teachers, especially Professor Felina and the director. A mysterious man watches furiously, thinking, "These miserable worms dare," as a dark aura envelops him. Suddenly, Aster finds himself surrounded by immense stone golems, questioning what kind of chaotic situation this is. Without hesitation, Aster charges forward and unleashes a blue energy strike, shattering the first golem he encounters. Aster watches an army of golems approach, realizing his enemies have unleashed their entire arsenal against him. With a confident smile, Aster recalls his identity as Troubleshooter Number 1, a veteran of all types of combat. Channeling a powerful blue aura, Aster prepares for the fight, vowing to annihilate whoever his opponents may be. Aster grabs Chenbi's shoulder and, recognizing him, warns him to run, sensing the imminent danger. While Chenbi screams in terror as the golems emerge, Aster remains calm and faces the threat. Chenbi raises his bracelet, realizing the artifact is linked to the control system, acting as the bell. Aster receives the object with a determined smile, accepting the plea for everyone to survive and reunite in the future. The young man remembers his family and the sister who dropped out of school for him, fueling his will to survive. In a vision of his past, Chenbi sees himself beside his parents, a moment of peace contrasting with his current reality. Chenbi is shocked and teary-eyed, shaken by Aster's harsh confession about being someone who would abandon a friend. Amidst an explosion of energy, Aster refuses to yield, shouting with determination that he will never give up. Aster unleashes a powerful light spell, deciding he must use the best magic he knows to win the battle. A mysterious man in a dark cloak observes the attack, shocked to recognize the type of magic being used against him. Aster smiles intensely as he conjures a golden magic circle, asking if his spell doesn't seem grand enough. With effort, he shouts the spell's name, Astir, manifesting a majestic energy like a cavalry lance. A bystander is utterly shocked, turning in astonishment as they witness the overwhelming power unleashed by Aster. Aster coughs blood, feeling the recoil of the overwhelming power as he ponders what is yet to come. With a shocked expression, Aster realizes his comrade's sacrifice and cries out his name in despair. Chenbi! While being supported, Chenbi downplays his great deed, humbly responding that it wasn't anything so grand. Aster immobilizes an opponent and tells him not to pretend to be dying, as an injury like that certainly wouldn't kill him. With closed eyes, Aster concentrates to feel the mana flow, telling himself, "Let's see," as he searches for a direction. With a determined gaze, Aster opens his eyes, having finally found the correct direction to follow within the complex labyrinth. Aster senses a strange mana flow towards the control room, noting that, though familiar, it isn't Declan's method. With a serious expression, he approaches cautiously, feeling the magical anomaly intensify with each step. He is met with an overwhelming energy that condenses before him, materializing a dangerous demonic realm. Aster watches the arena with a sneer, anticipating the dark magic his opponents are about to conjure for the test. With eyes glowing an intense blue, Aster focuses on his main adversary amidst the chaos, the troublesome student named Friesen. Backstage, a wizard manipulates a huge mana crystal, controlling the simulation and the monster students must face. A man reflects on how the erosion of demonic energy allowed him to seize the control room, his hand crackling with power. With the figure of a dark knight looming behind, the masked man stands firm, ready to execute his plan against the academy. Damien glares at the masked man, threatening him not to dare utter his family's name if he doesn't want to die. With a maniacal grin, Friesen boasts, certain the elders will fully support him once they witness his power. While discussing taking the core, a masked man alerts Friesen that a student is approaching their location. Friesen eagerly grabs his accomplice, declaring that the first test subject for his experiment has just arrived. The student enters an area of demonic contamination where it's believed anyone would instantly die or go mad. Friesen smirks disdainfully, stating Aster's knowledge is merely common sense, implying the truth is far more complex. Before a holographic panel, Aster analyzes the enemies, wondering what his next move will be to handle the situation. The screens reveal enemy units have surrounded him, and Aster realizes there's seemingly nowhere to run. Aster finds himself in a digital arena and decides to push forward, stating the situation is perfect for his plans. With an intense and determined gaze, he faces the challenge before him, ready to act. A smile forms on his face as he asks to wait, indicating he has an unexpected plan in mind. With a confident smile, Aster reveals he knows his opponent, calling out to Friesen with an intense, intimidating stare. Completely taken aback, Friesen and his masked companion react with shock and panic as their identity is exposed. Friesen desperately wonders how Aster could know his name, watching the protagonist enveloped in an aura of power. Aster recognizes the test bracelet, activating it, and preparing for the dangerous challenge ahead. In an agile move, Aster dodges attacks and counterattacks with powerful energy blasts, disintegrating the dark creatures. The creatures reappear confused, asking, "What?" with pieces of the bracelet now embedded in their bodies. With a cold gaze and glowing eyes, Aster gives a sinister order for the creatures to kill each other. In a panic, Friesen screams desperately as he watches his summons destroy each other, lamenting the loss of his babies. Meanwhile, an operator watches Aster's impressive speed on a monitor, questioning how he can be so fast. One of the students panics, desperately screaming to their allies in an attempt to halt the advance. Ignoring the warnings, a powerful blue mana blast pierces the defenses, striking down several enemies at once. A masked figure emerges from a dark aura, surprising Friesen by greeting him as an old acquaintance. With a maniacal grin, Friesen summons two gigantic stone golems wreathed in thorny vines to defend himself. The stone creatures crack their knuckles with glowing red eyes, demonstrating their strength and readiness for combat. Aster approaches Damien's group, who react with surprise and distrust to his sudden and unexpected appearance. A student questions Aster's proposal, asking why they should trust him and discard their precious bracelets. With a furious glare, Dahlia stares at Aster, understanding his true intention is to collect everyone's bracelets. A student accuses the boy of trying to trick them to avoid failure, while others mock, calling them two peas in a pod. Aster rages and shouts for them to stop talking, stating that they know absolutely nothing about what happened. The boy is shocked by Aster's sudden and intense defense, staring at him with wide eyes. With his eyes glowing in different colors, Damien holds a ring and firmly declares he has a friend he trusts. Aster is shocked to see Damien turn with a wild and disturbing smile, exclaiming his name in thought. Concerned by the sudden change, Aster thinks to himself that such behavior is utterly uncharacteristic of his friend. Aster stares at his targets with a sinister smile, saying he didn't expect to find them there. In a panic, a boy calls his protector a lunatic, demanding to know why he isn't defending him. The masked man prepares his weapon, declaring that, being a contract, he has no choice but to fight. A masked assassin approaches, declaring he will need to kill his target without leaving a trace. The assassin and his demonic hound appear, their red eyes gleaming with murderous intent. Aster watches the assassin, questioning why a Weimar's hound would be following a rat like him. Friesen screams explosively, emphasizing that he asked the question first and demands an answer. He furiously questions why Weimar's hound would be in the company of a wretched rat like Aster. With his face contorted in hatred, Friesen insists on his question, screaming for them to answer him immediately. Aster's mysterious companion reacts to the accusation, silently grinding his teeth beneath his mask. Bound by chains, a mysterious man grows irritated and demands his opponent stop repeating the same useless phrase. Aster whirls around furiously, screaming and questioning why anyone would ally with that scoundrel. As Aster yells for him to stop, the masked man conjures a magic circle, preparing a powerful spell. Surprised to be recognized, the enemy questions Aster's obsession as magical weapons fly toward him. With a furious shout, Aster invokes the names of his weapons, Weimar, Hound, to command the imminent attack. Confidently, the enemy believes Aster cannot dodge, thanks to the recovery magic and speed enchantments on his weapons. As he attacks with mana chains, Aster reveals he has bred dogs before, hinting at knowing his opponent's instincts. With a sinister smile, he explains that repeated sounds make dogs anxious, just as it is happening to his adversary. The enemy rages, realizing Aster is treating him like a dog as the boy prepares for his next move. The masked assassin, known as Declan's Hound, attacks Aster with chains, initiating a fierce and unexpected confrontation. Enraged, Friesen channels electricity into his fist, shouting that the minion cannot be defeated by a mere brat. The clash of powers results in a devastating blow, leaving Aster wounded and spitting blood, to Friesen's shock. Emanating power, Aster smiles and tells Friesen that, with no one to help him, the fight will now be just between the two of them. Furious, Friesen draws a magical artifact, cursing Aster for his arrogance as he prepares for a counterattack. Aster's attack is devastating, and Friesen screams in agony as his arm is severely wounded and bleeding. With his arm disintegrating, Friesen recoils in terror, begging Aster to back off and questioning his true nature. In an act of desperation, Friesen conjures a sinister orb, threatening to send Aster's friends to the demonic realm. Aster's cold reply, "So what?" leaves Friesen utterly shocked, unable to comprehend the indifference to the threat. Friesen glares at Aster angrily, warning him to laugh all he wants, for his amusement is about to end. He realizes Aster's energy creates a demonic realm, but is shocked that he doesn't react as his friends are consumed. Aster replies that the method is simple and suddenly crushes Friesen's hand, who screams in pain from the unexpected attack. Completely in shock, Friesen looks at his trembling hand, not understanding when Aster managed to approach and attack him. Aster activates a magic orb with a touch, while his wounded opponent wonders, shocked, how he can be there. With an intense gaze, Aster reveals he would never forget him, for he was the one who taught forbidden magic to the young master. Aster reflects on the long pursuit, admitting he was so focused on his goal that he lost track of time. The head of house. Declan stares at the chaotic portal, recalling that after a long pursuit, Aster chose the demonic realm as his final refuge. Clutching his head, Declan recalls nearly going insane, with beasts attacking him and demonic energy rotting his body as he searched for Aster. His face twists into a sinister smile as he reveals he captured Aster and extracted all secrets about forbidden magic and the artifact from him. Severely wounded, a man reflects on the emptiness he felt, remembering days spent gazing at the sky in front of the demonic realm. The troubleshooter's manager confronts him, noting his injury as the attendant tries to diminish himself, claiming to be insignificant. With an intense gaze, the manager forces a potion on the man, insisting he cannot die now and needs to listen until the end. Aster recalls feeling like an idiot looking at himself, contrasting his situation with the freedom he saw in the skies. The memory shifts to a brutal combat, where a man prepares to use forbidden magic after a surprise attack. With power-reddened eyes, Aster reveals that all this time was for this day, after reviewing the knowledge left behind countless times. Aster conjures a magic circle and confronts the enemy, remembering how he described in detail how his companions died. With a sadistic gaze, Aster raises his weapon over the fallen enemy, vowing to recreate every piece of the pain he caused. Amidst the chaos, an academy official orders his men to find the students, yelling for them to save them at all costs. Professor Felina arrives at the disaster site, muttering curses as she assesses the destruction and gravity of the situation. Upon being called, Professor Felina turns, ready to take control of the emergency situation at the academy. She receives the restored magic eye, being informed that all interference spells have finally been dispelled. Felina orders that finding survivors is the priority, instructing everyone to use the magic eye to locate the students. A woman checks on a fallen man, smiling as she confirms he is only unconscious, while Aster observes the scene closely. Aster becomes apprehensive seeing his companions celebrating before giant stone golems, which appear to be the corridor's guardians. Observing from afar, Professor Felina grows furious and confused, questioning what exactly is happening inside the testing corridor. Other spectators murmur, shocked that the intruders have been in the corridor for 2 hours without a single casualty among them. Professor Perun tells Professor Felina that she had better see the situation with her own eyes, as the orb projects an image. The projection reveals a macabre scene. A man vomits upon seeing a body impaled by ice, while another agonizes on the floor. Coldly, Felina reprimands him, while the man wonders, horrified, who could have been responsible for the brutal attack. Professor Felina analyzes the results of a test, her expression turning serious as she notices something unusual in the data. She notices an error in the measurement, concluding that Aster's magic emission exceeds the limit and is far beyond a student's level. Zira agrees and instructs Felina to monitor Aster closely, admitting not to know what he truly is. Meanwhile, Aster remains elsewhere, completely unaware of the attention he's drawing from the Academy's professors. Professor Felina startles at Aster's image on her screen, surprised by the information she's receiving about the student. As Felina watches the screen, the Academy director looks around, confused and trying to understand the commotion. Shocked, the director stares at Aster's image and questions. "Are you saying the one responsible for that scene? Is that boy?" Aster levitates, recalling that in his past life as a mercenary, watching comrades die was just part of the job. Amidst his aura, he realizes the test's emotions were the seeds of a heart demon, an internal danger. With a determined gaze, Aster questions his own weakness, reaffirming who he is to overcome the challenge he faces. Enveloped in his aura, Aster reflects that, as a former mercenary, he feels at ease with uncertainty and tension. A week after the incident, Aster decides it's the perfect chance to act, feeling in his best physical and mental condition. Aster smiles confidently, holding the Crimson Fire secret tome, ready for the challenge that lies ahead. Aster concentrates to keep his mental image clear, visualizing a flame that burns on its own, needing nothing else. He idealizes a flame born of mana, yet burning without it, a fire that craves not even oxygen to exist. With the mental image complete, Aster finally achieves ignition, manifesting a powerful, self-sufficient sphere of fire before him. Aster conjures a fireball and is impressed by its power, noting the magic is twice as strong as what he usually uses. He tries to compress the fire magic but quickly concludes that, for now, a single compression is his limit. By adding the fire attribute to his technique, Aster feels a step closer to surpassing the great mage who haunts him. In the rain, the director confronts Aster, praising his perception and mana control, realizing he is extraordinary. Aster is shocked to realize the mysterious man awaiting him in the rain is, in fact, the Academy's director. Suddenly, the director unleashes an overwhelming sinister aura, revealing immense power and glowing red eyes to Aster. With a powerful aura, Aster prepares for the confrontation, determined not to bow to anyone, preferring to break rather than yield. Confronted by the director, Aster changes tactics and bows exaggeratedly, thinking that waists were made to bend. The director reveals he blocked surrounding sound, and Aster realizes his plan to call for help failed, noting the old man's cunning. In the rain, Damien confronts Aster and declares he came for answers, regardless of his cooperation. Damien releases a magical containment force, and Aster perceives it's not killing intent, but something akin to pure mana. He reveals that Professor Felina told him Aster seems to be hiding something, which motivated him to act. Aster retaliates with an indirect method, releasing the energy that bound him to assert his superiority. In the rain, Aster confronts the director, confessing to having dealt with the rats, leaving the ground cracked at his feet. The director is surprised he doesn't hide it, but Aster states it's not a secret worth keeping. Tension mounts in a silent confrontation, the director glaring at Aster with fury, and the young man returning the gaze with determination. Aster watches the director in the rain, thinking he's a lunatic due to his sudden and constant mood swings. With a determined expression, Aster prepares for whatever comes next, facing the director in the heavy rain. As the rain continues, Aster senses the shift in the environment, thinking the atmosphere is definitely different from before. The director releases a wild aura in the rain, and Aster realizes he's seeing his true face, that of a war mage. The director is shocked by Aster's words, his monocle falling as he questions what he just heard. Pointing at Aster, the director declares that on the battlefield there are no seniors preparing for the imminent confrontation. In the rain, Aster is confused by Alfredo's words, thinking this isn't a battlefield with veterans and rookies. Aster kneels, yielding and calling him veteran. Alfredo, satisfied, comments on his sudden obedience. With intensely shining eyes, Alfredo questions what kind of scum Aster's former companions were to have been abandoned like that. In the rain, Aster asks Alfredo about his plans, while the butler decides to gather his former companions to crush their enemies. Alfredo asks a threatening question about a dead mage, implying Aster might share the same fate, but the young man denies knowing anything. As the rain continues, Aster composes himself and asks Alfredo about Weimar, questioning if they are both involved. The director, sitting on the ground in the rain, reprimands Aster for his insolence, but the young man remains unfazed before him. After the confrontation, the Academy's director seems resigned, accepting the situation as the rain continues to fall on him. Aster sits calmly in the rain, comprehending the situation and murmuring to himself, "I understand. I understand." With a steady gaze, Aster thinks he said all he could, as he cannot reveal the truth about his regression or the grimoire. The director releases an intimidating aura, and Aster realizes that despite everything, he is genuinely furious with the situation. Aster smiles defiantly, and the director insults him, telling him not to smile with those rotten goblin eyes. In the rain, Aster smiles ironically, thinking that, as expected, the world is moved by blood, regional, and academic ties. Damien postpones collecting a favor and reveals the plan: to use an artifact capable of building a demonic kingdom for protection. Aster contemplates the tower's defense but admits to Damien that his limited knowledge of Magatech is a major problem for the plan. A shadowy figure warns that even without investigating his identity, it will be difficult to make Professor Felina accept him. Under the rain, Alfredo turns to Aster and says with conviction, "Then, let's do this," initiating the plan. The next day, the sun shines over the imposing academy building where Aster and Alfredo's plan will be put into action. Two colleagues, with full cheeks, surprise Aster with a "long time no see," while Damien displays a creepy, satisfied smile. Confused by their appearance, Aster asks why they gained so much weight, leaving his colleague embarrassed and without a clear answer. Enthusiastically, Damien thanks Aster for his help in the test corridor, showing his gratitude in a very expansive way. A young man looks aside and sincerely thanks Aster, acknowledging the help he received to achieve his goal. With his hand on a book, Aster replies that there's no reason to thank him, deflecting credit for the young man's achievement. Aster states that the change was created by the young man himself, who reacts surprised and speechless with full cheeks. As Damien smiles, other students comment with surprise about his recent feat, questioning if he really controlled a golem alone. Aster sits down, suggesting they talk in detail, as there's a lot to catch up on since they last saw each other. The conversation is suddenly interrupted by Professor Felina, who approaches imposingly and asks Aster to grant her a moment. Professor Felina questions Aster's lineage as a war mage and accuses Weimar of being the mastermind behind the incident. It's revealed that among the enemies there is one whose master harbors deep resentment against Declan and Weimar. With a serious look, Aster interrupts the conversation, indicating there's a more urgent matter to address first. Professor Felina, visibly flushed, tells Aster he doesn't seem to be a threat to the Academy, trying to maintain her composure. Aster listens to the professor's words with a serious and impassive expression, analyzing the situation in silence. Completely shocked and red-faced, Professor Felina internally wonders what's happening, totally caught by surprise. Completely caught off guard by Aster, Professor Felina blushes intensely, visibly shaken by the unexpected situation. Sitting before Aster, Professor Felina composes herself and states that, despite everything, she needs to say what has to be said. Visibly embarrassed, Professor Felina averts her gaze and thanks Aster, feeling very awkward about the whole situation. Aster listens carefully to Professor Felina's offer and, understanding the situation, prepares to speak. I see." Feeling the weight of the negotiation, Aster reveals his plan for a library for all, asking for her support for his publications. Professor Felina evaluates the proposal and agrees, satisfied to create a third important academic connection. "Not bad. Very well, I agree." Professor Felina stares at Aster with a severe expression, sitting with her arms crossed as she silently evaluates him. She warns him about the forbidden group Salvation, explaining that they are the ones who will cling to the gauntlet he possesses. Concerned, Professor Felina touches her forehead, pondering the implications of Aster's dangerous situation with the cult. With an intense gaze, Professor Felina reveals that the Forbidden Magic Cabal's goal was to recreate the demonic realm. She explains that the dead man carried a gift from a reality manipulator, which is now gone. Aster smiles confidently, replying that he will keep her warning in mind, undeterred by the revelation. Aster manifests a dark mana gauntlet, a silent display of his power and determination for the negotiation about to begin. Professor Felina responds with her own magic, remarking with a scornful smile that Aster possesses great ambitions. The negotiation is interrupted by a man rushing in, exclaiming in surprise upon finding Professor Felina there. Alfredo glares at the head of House Declan, thinking disdainfully that this brat is the current leader of the enemy family. With a hand on his chin, the head of House Declan ponders impatiently, wondering if the time to act hasn't arrived yet. Annoyed, Alfredo confronts him for speaking nonsense, realizing the head of House Declan is trying to probe him. The head of House Declan emerges with a sinister smile, his red eyes glowing with malevolent intent as he prepares to act. He conjures magic circles and reveals he personally captured the main house's worms, taking responsibility for the act. Trapped, Alfredo watches in fear and helplessness as dark, menacing energy manifests around him, completely cornering him. Enveloped in a dark aura, the head of House Declan reveals he brought the direct and collateral bloodlines, with Weimar leading them. From a balcony, Aster observes the property and thinks that, as expected, the head of the house took Weimar's head. On top of the wall, Aster reflects that in his past life, the head was an incomprehensible existence. But now everything feels different. Aster displays a confident smile, perceived by others as an imposing and unshakable mountain. Clenching his fist, Aster swears that in this life he will finally reach and surpass the head of House Declan. Meanwhile, in a display of the Vicar bloodline, a man named Farron stands out, taking things a step further. House Declan reveals its plan to send a direct descendant to the Academy, using him as a powerful hostage in their political machinations. Professor Felina ponders if the recent movements were an orchestrated plan, suspecting a conspiracy among noble families. Amidst the intrigues, the Pistonike Festival begins, and students enjoy the rare permission to consume alcohol and celebrate openly. Aster observes a lively drinking contest among mercenaries, deducing that the hired security guards are not participating in the party. The winner mocks his last opponent and challenges the crowd, asking who will be next to face him in the drinking contest. With gleaming eyes, Damien enthusiastically volunteers, shouting that he wants to try too, much to his companion's shock. Aster's name is called, and he steps forward with a serious, focused gaze, ready to receive his recognition. As he walks, Aster passes Eveline de Planchet, the daughter of the Goldran Trading Company, who watches him with curiosity. The director offers Aster a box, thanking him profoundly for his valuable and unexpected contribution. Aster reflects on the incessant work and decides they deserve a break, allowing himself to relax a little. Suddenly, the night sky illuminates with fireworks, and Aster and Damien look up, surprised by the spectacle. As the fireworks explode, the group watches in silence, sharing a well-deserved moment of awe and tranquility. Aster watches the fireworks and, though he considers it a waste, admits the display is impressive and inspires him. His eyes open with new determination as he makes a silent promise for the future. Someday, he recalls his past life as the great sage Aster, a powerful figure who changed the continent's destiny. Aster arrives at the meeting point on the grass with his familiar on his head, awaiting the person who summoned him for a talk. He approaches an old building, thinking the place, once used by troubleshooters, is perfect for secret conversations. Upon entering, Aster is shocked by the luxurious interior, asking what it is. A voice replies that tradition left no choice. The Academy director hands Aster a sealed letter, initiating a conversation that appears to be of utmost importance. Aster immediately senses trouble in the air, distrusting the intentions behind the director's sudden visit. Upon reading the proposal, Aster is astonished by the offered reward: a large quantity of high and medium-grade elixirs. Sitting in silence, the director questions Aster about something he was about to say, putting him in a delicate situation. With an intense smile, Aster exclaims that he is late to retire from the Academy, determined to follow his plan. As compensation, he holds a valuable artifact production voucher from the Irricane workshop that he acquired through negotiation. He walks away, reflecting that he gained more compensation by exposing the scam, ignoring those who accuse him of lacking conscience. Aster's eyes glow with an intense blue light, signaling he's about to initiate a new and powerful technique. An overwhelming mana aura explodes around Aster as he channels the energy, preparing his body for the influx of power. Even using his usual breathing technique, he resolves to channel every drop of the mana elixir directly into his body this time. Aster begins the process to strengthen his body, thinking the ultimate goal is to let mana permeate every cell and muscle fiber. The fire mark on his chest activates, and Aster almost loses focus. Still, he smiles, for the activation was expected. Bloodshot eyes, Aster proceeds as planned, circulating mana through his whole body, not just the magic circuits. Aster writhes in agony on the floor, deeming the process an insane torture as mana envelops his body. In agony, he questions if such pain is necessary, but recalls his current life is abundant and worth the effort. After the ordeal, Aster stands, realizing he not only succeeded in creating mana limbs, but perhaps surpassed them. Aster decides to test his new ability, bracing for a self-strike, declaring he'll assess his regeneration's power. He spits blood, surprised by the impact's force, exclaiming he didn't even use his full power in the attack. Impressed by his wound's rapid recovery, Aster realizes his new ability rivals troll-level regeneration. Aster is shocked. His spell's pattern isn't himself, but blood, something beyond common sense. With a sinister smile, Aster names his new powerful ability, Blood Magic. Elsewhere, Lancey asks Aster if there's an issue with his suggested construction proposal. Lancey stares at Aster with an analytical gaze, pondering the bold proposal she just heard, weighing its possibilities. With a slight smile, she admits the task isn't entirely impossible, hinting at a path to success. Adjusting her glasses, Lancey imposes a condition. He must rank among the top 16 in the Academy's midterm evaluation. Chenbi approaches Aster, promising a Blandor family reward if he aids young Master Damien. With a sinister smile and gleaming eyes, Damien shows he perfectly understood what must be done. Damien arrives, hurried, carrying a folder, saying that when in doubt, he brought everything he had for the mission. Professor Felina throws papers on the table, celebrating with a victorious shout, "Yes, I did it!" As his colleague sighs in relief, Aster stares at him suspiciously, questioning if her words are true. The student rises to leave, but Aster stops him with a, "Hey," initiating a serious conversation. With eyes gleaming with enthusiasm, Damien offers to help, showing interest in joining the studies. Noticing Aster's hesitation, the girl comments on their distrust and tries to explain. To prove her worth, she presents a document that stuns the group, revealing valuable information. A student reveals having a summary of all teachers' exams, complete with topics and key points to prove his worth. Upon receiving the papers, the other student agrees the information is sufficient to trust him, stating everything is now clearer. Observing the exchange, Aster imposes a condition, thinking he won't need to hold back much longer. With a malicious grin, a man snaps his fingers, inviting a shocked woman to follow him to the training room. The woman follows, visibly nervous and breaking out in a cold sweat, apprehensive of his intentions and what awaits her. As they walk through the city, she asks how far they're going, and he replies that they are almost there. Aster enters the training center with a serious expression, anticipating the encounter that is about to happen. Dahlia appears, already dressed for training, and calls Aster by name, ready for what seems to be a confrontation. Aster stares at her and pronounces her full name, Dahlia Dedinai, acknowledging the presence of his rival. Dahlia's colleague questions if Aster is the right choice, but Dahlia interrupts her with a decisive no, showing her conviction. Aster refuses the request, suggesting Dahlia train with someone else. He explains he needs to tutor Damien until the exam. Shocked, Dahlia's companion asks if she will really consider this absurd suggestion, incredulous at Aster's proposal. Aster's gaze turns cold and serious upon hearing the student declare that the debt between them is settled. The student stutters, unsure how to respond, but Dahlia intervenes with a simple, "All right," seemingly accepting the situation. Gathering courage, the student beats her chest and shouts that she is a proud descendant of the Denai family with free will. Aster smiles dismissively, saying he needs a punching bag and questions if the descendant is stronger than Exter. Dahlia walks away, refusing the confrontation by saying she doesn't have time for it as the exam is approaching. Watching her leave, Aster thinks with relief that, with the situation resolved, Chenbi can finally relax a bit. Dahlia stares at Aster with a serious and determined look, silently nodding to the agreement being proposed. While eating, Aster reflects on his second chance, aware that his decision is a path of no return. Oblivious to the tension, Evelyn simply enjoys the meal, a moment of calm before the approaching storm. During dinner, the red-haired woman stares at Aster and questions him, asking if he isn't trying too hard. She reveals that the exams are near, and Aster realizes, shocked, that his new and unexpected mission is to steal them. With an intense and authoritative gaze, the woman gives her final order to Aster, demanding he understand the mission without questioning. A red-haired man smiles enigmatically at his guest, insisting he eat the meal before it gets cold. Aster recalls how Dahlia was corrupted in the past life, but now, thanks to a contract, he himself is training her. Chief Declan reflects on how profitable Dahlia was. Knowing the future, Aster ponders whether to advance the timeline. Dahlia approaches to ask for help, and Aster questions her with surprise if she really wants him to teach her his method. Aster illustrates a hypothetical duel, and Dahlia correctly concludes that the lower-ranked 8th-level mage would be the victor. With a provocative smile, Aster points to his own head and declares the duel's rule. Whoever breaks the others first wins. Dahlia glares at him suspiciously, surprised by the brutal condition and questioning if he truly meant to attack the head. Ignoring her hesitation, Aster begins conjuring lightning magic on his finger, preparing for the imminent confrontation. At the end of the day, Aster stretches, feeling the fatigue of training as the sun sets over the academy. As he walks, Aster reflects that Dahlia's constant defeats are, in fact, beneficial for her growth as a mage. With a sly smile, Aster questions the bet's value, mentioning 310 gold to provoke his interlocutor. Aster walks, annoyed by the new mission to steal evidence. He wants to quit, but knows they won't leave him alone. He reflects on Evelyn's influence, acknowledging she has more than enough power to enforce her will. Despite the risk, Aster realizes this is a perfect opportunity to connect with noble families through Evelyn's contracts. Friesen approaches the location, furious as he recalls how, last time, that damn street brat ruined everything. With an arrogant gaze, he enters the establishment, convinced that this time his mission will be an absolute success. However, Aster already awaits him, observing his arrival with a sly smile that indicates everything is going as planned. A bespectacled employee greets Aster with a friendly smile, indicating he has arrived at the right place for the secret meeting. Aster thinks with relief that this is the place Evelyn mentioned, as it would be embarrassing to say the code in a regular shop. The employee maintains his professional and welcoming smile as he prepares to fulfill Aster's special request. The black market manager questions Aster on how he found the location, leaving him visibly surprised by the direct question. Aster stares at the manager and reveals that the magic department led him there, piquing the man's interest. Aster perceives his interlocutor's intentions, understanding he plans to use him for self-promotion and to humiliate him. With a smile, Aster decides to go with the man, stating that he has nowhere left to retreat anyway. A confident smile forms on his face as he agrees with a simple, "all right," sealing the deal. Aster finds the situation suspicious. A seller and a buyer of evidence appear simultaneously, and no one even mentioned the price. Meanwhile, a hooded figure emerges with a plan in mind, questioning whether they should start by robbing the richest target first. In an opulent hall, a man waits in silence as the sound of a bell announces an imminent arrival. As he sips his tea, he thinks the work has become tedious and decides to leave the city once it's done. Suddenly, a voice startles him, questioning why he isn't attending to the newly arrived customers. A nervous shopkeeper asks a masked figure what they seek, sensing the dangerous tension in the air. He panics, realizing the visitor seeks Callahan's subspace bag, which vanished upon his death. Unsure what to do, the man forces an awkward smile, concealing his growing despair. Beneath a hood and mask, Aster's eyes gleam intensely, revealing a powerful aura that terrifies his target. Terrified, the man promises to tell everything about the boy, desperately insisting he has no connection to House Declan. Without wasting time, Aster orders the man to start talking, guiding him toward the warehouse to continue the interrogation. Visibly nervous and confused by the sudden approach, Chenbi stammers a question, not understanding what's happening. The masked figure leads Chenbi to an isolated spot, assuring nothing will happen if he's innocent and swearing by Declan's name. With a confident smile behind the mask, the figure stares at Chenbi, revealing their certainty that intimidation will work. It's revealed the job was commissioned by Evelyn, daughter of the Goldran Trading Company, who appears with a determined gaze. Disguised, Aster overhears the informant's suspicion. Evelyn is trying to create a black market to sell evidence at the academy. Despite rumors, Evelyn is shown as an exemplary and confident student, raising her hand to actively participate in class. A masked figure rages at their dead-end tutor life, while others comfortably wield money and power. The tutor guides him into a room, while the masked figure expresses their fury, stating that this is the place. Upon opening the door, the tutor is startled by the imposing and silent presence of the masked figure following closely. A masked and hooded man announces that all suspicious items will be confiscated, initiating an intimidating search. Realizing the situation, Chenbi becomes furious and mentally curses the culprit, calling him a damn punk in a fit of rage. Damien and Aster argue over a method, with Aster insisting that without a certain element, the place turns into hell. Suddenly, Dahlia appears at the scene, shocking everyone with her unexpected presence. Chenbi, furious, confronts Aster, angrily calling him a damn scoundrel. Chenbi confirms the calculations are correct, and Damien celebrates, shouting that he can now create blood, sweat, and tears. Observing DB, who seems tense, Aster thinks to himself that he'd love to beat him senseless. With a glowing orb in hand, the masked Aster prepares to intervene and declares it's showtime. Aster seems worried as he considers the curriculum, which includes 4 magic subjects and 2 general education courses for the first year. A hooded figure delivers a sealed letter to the red-haired matriarch, who receives it with a serious, calculating gaze. With a satisfied smile, Aster thinks his family can no longer ignore him and decides to make it clear that the merit belongs to DB. Completely shocked by the announcement, Evelyn is paralyzed, unable to process why she was called to receive the honor. As other students congratulate her, Evelyn is encouraged to be proud of her achievement, but she can barely force a smile. With a forced smile, she despairs, thinking she's not foolish enough to be caught in a cheating scheme. The award ceremony begins, and Evelyn watches from the audience, feeling that the entire situation is completely wrong. Aster smiles confidently, recalling Evelyn's advice, and becomes known as the champion of lost causes. A week after the reform, an announcement echoes through the academy. The new student rankings have finally been posted for all to see. Immediately, students race through the academy halls, eager to check their new rankings on the notice board. Damien and the other students look up, and he impatiently asks for the test results. An official descends the stairs, holding the large scroll with the rankings, heightening the tension among the students. With eyes gleaming with hope, the students lean in to hear the announcement that will define their futures. Finally, the scroll is unrolled, revealing Damien von Blander's name in the 16th position of the ranking. Damien euphorically hugs Aster, shouting that he succeeded. Aster thinks he can finally collect his reward, the multiplication formula. Satisfied with the outcome, Aster gives a thumbs up and wonders if he has a natural talent for teaching. Standing before Damien, Aster questions him with a serious expression, asking if he didn't know about something. A colleague faces Aster with determination, stating that the challenge he proposes seems very rewarding. Another student laughs and asks if Aster truly believes he isn't capable of facing a path of sweat, blood, and tears. Pleased with the reactions, Aster flashes a cunning smile, revealing that his plan is working perfectly. Chenbi glimpses his grand objective, imagining himself as a powerful archmage, a goal that now seems within his reach. Aster encourages him with a confident smile, stating that if one is to have a dream, it should be a grand one. With a fixed gaze, Chenbi recalls Aster's command. He must become an archmage to repay the debt for his life. Professor Felina arrives at the scene with a serious expression, her firm steps indicating that the conversation is about to begin. A man abruptly stands, mocking the hooded figure, saying it's ironic coming from someone who spends their life digging in the dirt. With a confident smile, the man reveals the discovery of ancient ruins in a forest, presenting the reason for the meeting. Under the hood, Aster smiles maliciously, his eye gleaming with power upon hearing of the ruins, as this fits into his plans. Sitting at the table, Professor Zira questions if the topic is the multiplication formula, demonstrating her knowledge of the advanced magical topic. Zira leans back and offers a high-level formula, explaining that while the main one is complex, public versions exist for academic exchange. With a satisfied smile, Aster thinks that receiving a high-level formula from the professor is a completely unexpected and highly advantageous gain. With a confident smile, Professor Zira states that House Blander can solve all problems for him. Chenbi nervously intertwines his fingers as he declines the offer, thanking them, but stating he's fine on his own. Zira tries to reassure him, asking him not to view the help as a burden, but Chenbi remains hesitant to accept. Aster declares he wants to be Damien's friend forever, which leaves the young noble visibly embarrassed and happy. Zira approaches Aster and, instead of a favor, asks if she can request something else in exchange for his help. Zira reveals her desire to study magic at House Blandor, but Aster questions her about the true depth of her ambition. Watching from afar, Aster smiles in satisfaction, confident that his plan to influence Damien's family is working. Lady Gamo questions Alfredo if Damien's friend truly said such a thing, and he promptly confirms its veracity. With a relieved smile, Lady Gamo expresses her happiness, commenting that Damien is fortunate to have such a good friend. A student reacts with utter disbelief upon reading a document, stammering, "Huh? What?" unable to comprehend the results they see. As the midterm evaluation concludes with satisfactory results for everyone, Aster smiles, confident in his own performance. Professor Zira formally announces that, starting today, students will enter the period of preparation for interpersonal combat. Professor Zira solemnly announces that, from now on, all training will be left to the students' own discretion. Evelyn raises her hand, confused, and asks Professor Zira for clarification, inquiring what discretionary means. Aster grows apprehensive at the announcement that students may return home to train, amidst the general commotion. A professor informs that elite combat mages will be invited to classes, while a student calmly analyzes the situation. Professor Zira suspects the sudden schedule change was a superior's decision, believing something is being hidden. With a serious expression, Aster arrives at the location and wonders what on earth happened to his senior during his absence. Shocked, Aster realizes everything around him has drastically changed and cannot comprehend the transformation. He finds a warehouse protected by magical barriers, realizing the place has been transformed into a private hideout. Aster tests a multicasting formula, multiplying a ruby into several manospheres and confirming his dangerous experiment worked. He observes that the rubies mirror the original, but concludes their magical power is still insufficient for his true plans. Alfredo appears, sensing Aster's mana in the spheres, and incredulously asks if he can truly use any magic with them. Aster breaks into a provocative smile, revealing his intention to challenge the instructor and test the limits of his own abilities. Alfredo questions Aster's audacity, saying, "You have a lot of nerve asking me to be your training dummy." With disdain, Aster stares at him and thinks he's the perfect punching bag. Confirming the challenge is serious, Aster challenges the director to prepare for combat. Confidently, the director states Aster won't even touch a strand of his hair. Aster begins fusing rubies to gather sufficient mana, shocking the director with the immense energy being amassed. A massive energy sphere forms in the sky. Enraged by the attack's scale, the director yells at Aster, calling him a wretch. Aster unleashes an immense energy blast, declaring that art is an explosion and demonstrating his overwhelming power to all. Shocked, Alfredo confronts Aster, questioning his origin and stating that the purity of his mana is beyond his comprehension. Aster declares himself an ordinary person, but the director disagrees and threatens to fix his distorted perception of reality. Confused by Aster's magic, the director questions him about the whereabouts of the mysteriously vanished red orbs. With a confident smile, Aster reveals the orbs are with him, gesturing to indicate he has absorbed them. After the display of power, Aster sits with the director to discuss an important matter concerning the Great Forest. The director places a glowing blue orb on the table, suggesting they watch its contents before talking. Upon seeing the images projected by the orb, Aster is utterly shocked and apprehensive about the unfolding scene. The vision shows terrified mercenaries, and the director exclaims, "The Great Forest mercenaries are trembling in fear?" Aster faces the situation with a tense expression, thinking that what's to come is natural, as it involves the undead. A red-eyed undead monster emerges, revealing it's no ordinary creature and poses a great danger. As the threat reveals itself, the Academy director observes the scene with complete calm, sipping a cup of tea. The Academy director shows an image of a monstrous creature, identifying it as a dangerous, self-generated undead. With a serious gaze, the director reveals the name given to these creatures, calling them Destroyers, the most impure of all. He explains that the Destroyer, sealed in ancient ruins, broke free, and vengeful spirits followed it to the surface. The director insists the reward is a gift for the new generation, stating he won't take it back even if Aster refuses. Aster rejects the offer, declaring that lives are at stake and it's not a matter of material temptation before turning to leave. Completely surprised by Aster's decision, the director is speechless, only managing to express his confusion with a, "Huh?" The Academy director seems delighted by Aster's proposal, giving his approval with a satisfied expression and a glint in his eyes. With permission granted, Aster wastes no time activating his magic, preparing to depart immediately with a determined glint in his eye. He smiles, thinking to himself that it would be impossible to refuse an opportunity like this, excited for what's to come. Aster offers an artifact cloak with protective magic, instructing the mysterious figure to take it for their protection. Facing the small hooded figure, Aster watches as a magic portal begins to form beside her. With a determined gaze, Aster observes the preparations, aware that his plan is underway and there's no turning back. A metal mask is presented, revealed to be the Sakwal mark, a key item for the approaching mission. Upon receiving the mask, Aster confirms the assessment of the situation is correct, understanding what needs to be done. Aster smiles confidently, stating he will personally handle the situation, demonstrating his readiness for the challenge. Damien finds a note from Aster, who left to train alone and asked not to be searched for. Inspired, Damien fills with determination, declaring he will also train to escape his confinement. After confirming the orders with a "yes, sir," Aster retreats from the location with a determined expression on his face. Isolated in a barrel storage, Aster sits alone, immersed in thoughts about the next steps of his plan. Distraught, he laments being certain they will come, yet still feels unprepared for the imminent confrontation. Aster tries to appeal to logic, reminding the man he's already been paid 4 times more for the risk involved. Desperate, the man stands and shouts that he also wants to live, as monsters could appear at any moment. Aster lowers his gaze, visibly shaken by the man's plea and the weight of responsibility in his hands. A mercenary smiles confidently, declaring his plan is about to begin. He plans his route, stating he will only make the journey with a powerful mage to profit from the situation. His true goal is to get rid of Aster, the naive mage, to steal his earnings and retire in peace. Surprised by the sudden appearance of the strangers in a tavern, the young man nervously questions who they are. The man introduces himself as Oberon and confirms he's in the right place upon learning Leheim is the young man's mentor. Seeking an alliance or an exit, the young man offers Oberon his map of the Grande Floresta as part of a negotiation. A man hands a valuable map to Aster, explaining the item is as precious as his own life. As Aster is about to leave, another man interrupts him with a stern look, ordering him to stop. The stranger approaches and threatens Aster, giving him 1 second to sit down before something happens. The masked figure observes his defeated opponent, coldly noting that only 1 second had passed since the attack began. A young man observes the scene in shock, realizing the victim of the brutal attack is his teacher. The masked assailant ponders his next objective, questioning if they have the power to destroy the destroyer. Magic symbols slice through the skies towards an ancient tower, marking the site where a powerful ritual is about to unfold. Amidst the ruins, a lone figure awaits, as magical energy manifests around them, signaling the ritual's progression. The troubleshooter's manager is informed that the seal has yet to break, as the strengthening spell requires more time to take effect. The head of house. Declan senses the aura of death and finds it strange that the seal hasn't broken, even after their release spell. While one must maintain the spell, they ask if their partner can handle the enemy alone, receiving a disdainful reply. With a determined gaze, Aster approaches the threat, ready to confront any monster that stands in their path. Aster watches the guide, relieved that everything went well, despite the difficulties they faced moments before. As he walks, he recalls the despair of having to save the guide and find his way back with just a map. The recovered guide smiles and thanks Aster with a thumbs up, calling him Wizard in gratitude for his help. During the journey, one of the hooded companions shouts a warning to the wizard, telling him to beware of an approaching threat. From the forest shadows, a horde of orcs Hamern, mounted on wild wolves, advances at high speed against the group. Startled by the enemy's speed, Aster realizes he needs to act fast and prepares to block the imminent attack alone. Aster watches seriously as a sinister red energy manifests around him, sensing the imminent danger in the forest. A rain of red magical projectiles descends upon the orc horde, mercilessly piercing them as they charge into attack. The attack continues with full force, exploding an orc's head in a bloody impact and annihilating the enemy's front line. A massive explosion sweeps the battlefield, pulverizing everything in its path and demonstrating overwhelming destructive power. After the impact of his power, Aster observes the cracked earth, contemplating the vast destruction he caused. A hooded and masked figure approaches a man, calling him Wizard to get his attention. The man turns with a forced smile and asks if he can use the figure's subspace storage for a moment. Amidst the violent confrontation, one of the goblins lets out a shrill cry of agony as it is hit directly. A mysterious, masked figure advances through the battle, eliminating monsters with swift, lethal blows amidst the chaos. He faces a giant goblin and wonders if Deathros is the cause, as he's never seen such a large and strong monster. The guide examines the monster's body on the ground and murmurs, just as I thought, confirming his initial suspicion about the creature. He identifies the creature as a Kenti goblin, which shouldn't be there, as they live near the second encampment. The guide concludes that the goblins are not expanding their territory, but rather fleeing from something far more dangerous. Analyzing the bodies, the guide notices the goblins' foot soles are completely destroyed, indicating they fled something in a panic. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he suggests the group take a detour, seeking a safer route to avoid the unknown danger. He laughs nervously, admitting he prefers to avoid unknown variables and not risk an encounter with whatever caused the massacre. A hooded man agrees to proceed with a plan, stating that unexpected risks are the deadliest, and his masked companion concurs with the decision. The masked man reflects that the situation is obvious, confirming to himself that his companion, Rayleigh's, instincts were entirely correct. Observing his companion from a distance, Rayleigh is impressed and admits in thought that the masked man is far more competent than he imagined. Aster and his masked companion pause in the forest, resting silently around a crackling campfire during the night. Noticing Aster's restlessness, the masked man reflects that he cannot blame him for being anxious about what lies ahead. Aster sighs, confirming their fears by stating that the monster wave is definitely arriving soon, leaving them on high alert. A masked companion admits it's all his fault, but Aster responds sarcastically, asking why he's venting his feelings to him. Under the rain, the masked man regrets not having trained more, gazing skyward as regret consumes him. The calm around the campfire is broken when an ally rushes in, desperately shouting for them to flee immediately. A man expresses his concern, breaking into a cold sweat thinking about the creature they must face to continue their journey. His masked companion suggests they avoid the danger, questioning if there isn't another way to cross the swamps. The man warns him, explaining that the second they touch the water, the creature will know of their presence. Concerned, Aster explains that if something goes wrong, they'll have to skip the first 2 camps and go straight to the third. Aster turns to the masked figure accompanying him, the silent tension between the two broken only by the crackling campfire. An ally describes the enemy they will face, a monster that has already fed on countless soldiers, mages, and knights. One of the men, with a serious gaze, raises his hand and declares with conviction that they will kill the target they are hunting. His masked companion appears to agree with the order, hiding his true intentions behind a completely impassive mask. Suddenly, the assassin turns against his own leader, delivering a surprise blow that incapacitates him in an instant. Disguised with a mask, Aster faces his campmates, coldly questioning what they intend to do next on their journey. He states that they needn't worry about him, as he has his own matters to resolve and will follow his own path. Aster abruptly turns to leave, leaving behind a surprised man who wonders why he is departing so suddenly. Sitting in the forest's gloom, a man waits with his hands tightly clasped, demonstrating the tension before a crucial encounter. Aster is shocked as the masked figure offers him a gift, the special ability called Overclock. With a piercing gaze and glowing eyes, the masked figure stares at Aster, awaiting his reaction to the unexpected offer. In an isolated clearing, Aster sits to meditate, concentrating his energy as a soft blue aura begins to envelop him. With a determined gaze, Aster's power explodes and his magical aura intensifies, glowing brightly around him. Nearby, a masked figure interrogates a man, sinisterly asking, "What type of tree do you like most?" As they prepare to enter the forest, Aster gives his sturdy mission companion an encouraging pat on the shoulder. A masked assassin emerges, eyes gleaming with cold, calculated intent, observing their targets from a distance. Aster enters the water, recalling the warning that danger begins the moment one steps into the territory. Swift attacks erupt from the water and Aster draws his dagger, ready to react to the imminent threat. Aster channels mana into his feet, moving swiftly across the water's surface to escape the ambush. Under the torrential rain, Aster faces his opponent with a determined gaze, ready for the approaching combat. A gigantic creature emerges from the water, ordering Aster to appear and be hunted by its guests. Declaring now, Aster channels golden energy into his hand, preparing to counterattack the monster. Aster fully unleashes his power, enveloping himself in an explosion of golden energy to face the imminent threat. As lightning crackles around him, Aster firmly faces the monster's gigantic paw descending to crush him. A masked demon delivers a powerful blow to the water, creating a shockwave that reverberates with full force. Aster flies towards the monster, conjuring multiple magic circles for a powerful attack as the creature glares up at him. Aware of the danger, Aster remembers total liberation lasts only 5 minutes, compelling him to finish the battle swiftly. Suddenly, red energy spheres surround Aster and his companion, trapping them in a surprise attack that fells his ally. Aster faces the demon, surrounded by magic circles, and smiles, saying 5 minutes are more than enough to have fun. A masked figure approaches Aster and calls him Junior, revealing himself as the one responsible for the mysterious attack. His crimson fire manifestation enters its second stage, ignition, and a new bullhorned flame creature emerges. Observers are astonished by the magic, questioning how the flames can burn even within water with such intensity. Aster floats in the air, watching a shadowy creature emerge from an immense explosion of flames consuming the battlefield. With a devastating impact, fists clash in an energy explosion, creating a shockwave that reverberates violently. Aster realizes the creature's roar is powerful enough to disrupt the natural flow of mana, affecting his own abilities. In conversation, an ally explains to Aster that the creature's scream distorts mana, rendering conventional magic ineffective against it. A muscular man warns that the cardinal rule for survival is never, ever, to set foot in the swamp of death. Aster unleashes his magic, forcing an observer to admit that this mage is completely unlike the others. Facing a monster, Aster decides it's time to start by eliminating the most annoying opponents that have appeared. Shrouded in lightning, Aster advances with glowing eyes, ready to deliver a powerful strike to his enemy. Aster's strike is so swift that the monster can only utter its surprise, "Gah!" as blood gushes forth. Reeling from the impact, the monster clutches its head and lets out a cry of pure agony. Yeah! A collision strike explodes in a flash of blue energy, completely engulfing the horned adversary at the center of the impact. Amidst the crackling energy, Aster observes the strike's aftermath and, with an air of surprise, says, "Wow, look at you." A new wave of power crashes, creating a vortex of green and white energy that distorts the battlefield with its force. Aster concentrates a sphere of blue energy and promises to show his opponent something interesting, preparing his attack. Aster unleashes his attack, the explosive annihilation, which races at high speed toward the horned monster. With eyes glowing and hand extended, Aster maintains focus, channeling the immense power of his spell. Aster remains in the water, concluding that defeating a mere monster isn't enough to truly test the limits of his abilities. As the monster sinks, Aster reflects on his technique, the explosive annihilation, named for its ability to destroy everything in its path. Concerned by the battle's intensity, his companions rush through the water towards him, shouting for him. Shrouded in blue energy, a masked man unleashes such immense power that his opponent questions if he's even a mage, given his mana efficiency. The troubleshooter's manager smiles, surprised to feel fear, then unleashes his own dark, overwhelming aura in response to the challenge. Wearing a mask, Aster regains consciousness near a campfire, mumbling in confusion after being knocked out. He sits up, hand on his head, and asks nearby Damien how long he'd been unconscious. Damien turns and replies that he's awake, informing him it's only been about 2 hours since he passed out. Sitting by the fire, Aster complains of his head spinning, and his companion explains these are the side effects of overclock. Facing the malaise, Aster thinks to himself that the debilitating sensation is as if he were dying. Looking at his trembling hand, he reflects that, if not for his companions, he would have drowned in the swamp water. A man appears with a confident smile, assuring them he won't flee anymore and asking if they were looking for him. Aster confronts him bluntly, telling him to stop stalling and demanding to know where the hell he's been all this time. The man jokes he was hiding in fear of a beating, but soon reveals he went to check on the Swamp Lord. Donning his mask, Aster listens to the explanation and coldly questions his reason for going there. As the Swamp Lord's body floats in the water, a man asks Aster what his plans are for the corpse. Aster offers the corpse as payment for the man's life and even asks if he needs a subspace bag to carry it. Ecstatic with the unexpected offer, the man clasps his hands and profusely thanks Aster for the incredible reward. Aster observes the hunter and decides not to claim the prey, thinking the man also needs to sustain himself and earn his living. With a smile, Aster explains he was taught that greed hinders training and corrupts the soul, appearing noble to his companion. Hearing Aster's lesson, Damien reacts with disdain, thinking to himself that all that nobility is a pile of nonsense. A hooded companion turns to Aster with a worried expression, asking what the plan is for moving forward. With an intense gaze, Aster questions the need for rest, indicating he's ready to continue the mission immediately. Another group member enthusiastically agrees, saying that after all they've been through, he just wants to keep moving. After a long journey, the group leader announces they've finally reached their destination under the night sky. As they approach Base Camp 1, they notice an unusual darkness, questioning why all the lights are out. The leader instructs the group to find the camp's person in charge as they need to receive their lodging assignments for the night. Damien observes from afar as a man approaches two hooded figures, sensing the tension of a confrontation about to begin. A veteran warrior with an eye patch stares at his opponents with a serious expression, his imposing presence dominating the atmosphere. With a violent impact that cracks the ground, a powerful figure lands, demonstrating overwhelming force before their adversary. An eye patch warrior extends his hand and questions disdainfully, "Don't you know how to shake hands?" "I'm just saying hello." The masked figure accepts the greeting, responding with a calm, "Oh, really?" without showing intimidation. The moment their hands touch, a wave of energy explodes, revealing the hidden power struggle within the gesture. A group of men confronts the hooded figures, questioning their actions, while Aster thinks he's too old for these power struggles. The leader reveals he overheard a scout boasting about a plan to deceive a naive mage, looking directly at Aster's group. Caught off guard by the accusation, Aster is momentarily speechless, realizing his plan might have been exposed. A commander warns that if Camp 4 falls, they will be next, and firmly declares they will fight. As one hooded figure considers the proposal, his companion interrupts with a decisive "no," rejecting the alliance. Turning away in anger, the man questions the proposal's logic, showing his utter disapproval and contempt for the idea. Alfredo's mercenaries face the situation with serious expressions, awaiting details of the dangerous mission ahead. Driven by bravery, the men shout in unison, volunteering for the mission. "I'll go too," they declare, one after another. Alfredo silences the commotion with authority, his voice resounding with a firm "enough," ending the discussion in chaos. An eye patch commander declares discipline is lax, and, accepting no arguments, orders everyone to disappear immediately. A long-haired man warns his comrades to wait outside, as he intends to beat them for their insubordination. Alongside a serious, hooded Aster, a man offers an awkward smile, starting the conversation with a rather nervous laugh. The man rubs his hands confidently, stating that while he doesn't know much, he's great at odd jobs and learns fast. Aster ponders that the man won't find better help, but he could be killed by Declan or get involved with forbidden magic. A man thanks Aster for the opportunity, promising his best, but stressing he won't go as far as selling his soul. With shining eyes, Aster dismisses the idea of persuasion and orders the people to be brought directly to him. As he awaits his order's fulfillment, Aster clasps his hands in a gesture showing his firm conviction and control of the situation. Aster approaches Chief Hog on a dock at night, initiating a secret and tense meeting about their plans. Chief Hog stares at him seriously and gets straight to the point, asking Aster what the current situation is. With a grim expression, Aster reveals his concern, stating that plans only matter if they return alive. The chief provokes Aster, saying he wouldn't understand the top, having never been there, which hardens the young man's expression. Looking at the horizon, the man challenges Aster, stating he must die soon so the young man can take his position. The chief crosses his arms confidently beside Aster, who remains silent, reinforcing the weight of his succession challenge. Aster, shocked, questions the chief's words, fearing he is heading to his death. The chief responds with a serene gaze, confirming they are both heading to the same dangerous place. Questioned, Aster confronts the chief, accusing him of being merely someone seeking a large payment. The chief coldly admits Aster is right about his motivation, accepting the accusation without hesitation. A hooded man gestures desperately, pleading for Alfredo to analyze the precarious situation of the troops, whom he considers mere rabble. He continues his plea to Alfredo, warning that many are ready to desert and asking him to reconsider going to the 4th base camp. Alfredo reacts with a slight disdainful smile, completely ignoring his subordinate's warning and desperate plea. The elder man stares at him, suggesting that, given his qualities, he should try sitting in the chief's chair at least once. The conversation turns physical as the man forcefully grabs Aster's arm, emphasizing his proposal directly. Caught off guard, Aster is utterly shocked by the action and the unexpected proposal, unsure how to react. Aster is visibly shocked by the situation, clutching his hood while staring at Alfredo on a gloomy staircase. With a confident gaze, Alfredo continues to discuss plans for the 2nd camp, completely oblivious to the imminent danger. Alfredo is stabbed by surprise, and Aster thinks that despite the moving farewell, it's still too soon for the end. Aster glares at his opponents with a cold gaze, promising to send them to the same fate as their fallen comrades. With eyes glowing red, Aster charges at high speed, delivering a powerful blow against one of the attackers. The impact of Aster's kick is brutal, sending the enemy tumbling down the stairs and showcasing his overwhelming strength. Even gravely wounded and with blood trickling from his mouth, Alfredo faces his attackers with a defiant smile, refusing to show weakness. After the attack, the hooded figure leaps away amidst an energy explosion, initiating a strategic retreat from the confrontation scene. From the shadows, a group of masked mages appears, and one immediately conjures a magic circle to cast another spell. A masked figure with glowing blue eyes observes their surroundings, disdainfully commenting that the place is full of rats.